The day I bought the Grand Marina Hotel, everyone thought I was making a huge mistake. Maybe they were right. The Grand Marina Hotel was once beautiful, but now it was losing money fast. The reviews were terrible, and the staff had lost hope. But Grace Shin, my mentor for 15 years, had believed in me. Before she passed away, she made me promise I'd buy it. I'm Julia Mars, 34 years old. 3 months ago, I was the successful manager of the fancy Riverside Royale Hotel. Now, I own what people call a historic hotel that needs fixing. Others just call it a money pit. When I quit my job, my old boss, Richard Sterling, shook his head. "You're ruining your career," he said. Grace was too stubborn to change with the times. "That hotel will take you down with it." But Richard didn't know Grace like I did. She gave me my first hotel job when I was 19, cleaning rooms while studying hotel management. She saw something in me and taught me everything she knew. "Hotels aren't just buildings, Julia," she used to say with a smile. "They're places where life's big moments happen. Weddings, reunions, goodbyes, new beginnings. We help people make memories." 2 days before she died, she made me promise 2 things: to buy the Grand Marina when it went up for sale and to never ever sell it to the Riverside Hotel chain. "No matter what they offer," she said firmly. "There are documents in my office safe. The combination is your birthday." I promised her, not knowing I'd soon be selling my condo, emptying my savings, and taking out a big loan to keep that promise. The hotel's price was lower than expected. Grace's children just wanted to sell it quickly, but fixing it up would cost a fortune. On my first day as the owner, I walked through the building and saw why it was struggling. The once shiny marble floors were dull, the old chandeliers needed repairs, and the famous Riverside restaurant was barely running. But beneath the dust and broken lights, the hotel was still stunning. High ceilings, detailed woodwork, huge windows overlooking the river. They didn't make places like this anymore. Maria Garcia, the head housekeeper who had worked for Grace for 20 years, hesitated before speaking. "The staff were wondering if we still have jobs." I smiled, remembering what Grace always said: "The staff is the heart of a hotel." "Your jobs are safe, Maria. In fact, I'll need everyone's help to bring this hotel back to life." She looked relieved, but there was something else in her eyes. Worry? Fear? Before I could ask, she rushed off to tell the others. I walked to Grace's office, my office now. On the wall, photos showed the hotel through the years. Behind a painting of the river was the old safe. I entered my birthday as the combination, and it opened just as Grace had said. Inside were folders, a USB drive, and an envelope with my name on it. Before I could look at them, my phone rang. Richard Sterling. "Julia, my dear," he said in his smooth voice. "I heard about your big purchase. I just wanted to warn you, Riverside Hotels is expanding. Your hotel's location is perfect for us." I gripped the phone. "The hotel's not for sale, Richard." "Don't be so quick to decide," he said. "That old building is more trouble than it's worth. We're willing to pay a lot, 3 times what you paid." The amount was enough to clear my debts and set me up for life. But Grace's warning echoed in my mind. "I'm still not interested," I said firmly. Richard's tone changed. "That hotel will bankrupt you. And when it does, believe me, it will, our offer won't be this generous." He hung up, leaving me gripping the phone, my heart pounding. Richard Sterling had been trying to buy the Grand Marina for years. Even when things were at their worst, Grace never sold. Now I was starting to understand why. I opened the envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter in Grace's familiar handwriting. "My dearest Julia, if you're reading this, it means you kept your promise. Thank you. I know this feels overwhelming, but you need to understand why keeping the Grand Marina away from Riverside Hotels is so important. The files in this safe don't just hold the hotel's history. They contain evidence, proof of something Richard Sterling has been hiding for 30 years. Something that could destroy him and the entire Riverside Hotel's empire. Start with the blue folder. You'll understand everything then. Be careful. Some of our staff were placed here by Sterling years ago. They've been spying on me, waiting for the right moment for him to take over. You are stronger than you know, Julia. I chose you not just because you're great at running a hotel, but because you have the courage to face what's coming. The hotel is your shield. The evidence is your weapon. Use them wisely. All my love, Grace." My hands trembled as I opened the blue folder. Inside were newspaper articles from 1993, police reports, financial records, and photographs. As I read, my stomach twisted. What Grace had discovered about Richard Sterling and his hotel empire was worse than anything I could have imagined. A knock at the door made me snap the folder shut. Thomas Fuller, the maintenance manager, stood there with an unreadable expression. "Everything okay, Mrs. Martinez? We noticed Mr. Sterling called." His tone made me remember Grace's warning. Some staff were working for Sterling. How long had Thomas been here? I struggled to remember. "Just a quick call," I said lightly, sliding the documents back into the safe, welcoming me to the business. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on the safe a little too long before he left. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. This wasn't just about saving an old hotel anymore. I wasn't just fighting to save a hotel anymore. I was fighting to expose a truth that powerful people wanted buried. And the real danger, it wasn't just Richard Sterling or his spies. Grace had uncovered something much bigger, corruption that reached the highest levels of city government. Some of those people were still in power. That night, once everyone had left, I went through everything in Grace's safe. The story hidden in those old documents was shocking. Back in 1993, the Grand Marina was one of 5 successful independent hotels in the city. Then, one by one, they were hit with mysterious accidents and health code violations. Within 18 months, 4 were forced to sell, bought up by a new company, Riverside Hotels, owned by a young Richard Sterling. But Grace's late husband, Henry Chen, had suspected something was wrong. He hired a private investigator who uncovered the truth. Sterling had bribed health inspectors, paid people to plant vermin, and even caused accidents to damage the hotels. Even worse, Sterling's startup money had come from Marcus Reynolds, the city's building commissioner. Reynolds used his power to block renovation permits for independent hotels while fast-tracking approvals for Sterling. The investigator put together a full report, but the night before he could go to federal authorities, he died in a car accident. 3 months later, Henry Chen died too, falling down the Grand Marina's service stairs. Another accident. Grace inherited both the hotel and the evidence, but instead of going public right away, she played the long game, gathering more proof while pretending to be just a stubborn old woman who wouldn't sell. The USB drive contained newer evidence, emails proving Sterling was still using the same tactics, offshore accounts hiding bribes, and shady deals with current city officials. But the worst discovery was a set of security camera photos from the night Henry Chen died. They showed a younger Thomas Fuller, our maintenance manager, on the service stairs just before Henry's fatal fall. My stomach turned. Thomas wasn't just a spy for Sterling. He might have been a murderer. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Meeting tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. Bring all files from the safe. No police or press or accident reports from 1993 go public. Your choice." They knew about the safe, which meant Thomas must have tipped them off. I had to think like Grace. She had kept this evidence safe for 30 years. How? I glanced at the wall of old hotel photos. One caught my eye. A 1995 picture of Grace standing in front of the newly reopened Riverside restaurant. It had been closed for months after a mysterious kitchen fire. That's when I knew what to do. I grabbed my phone and called Maria Garcia. She answered right away. "Mrs. Martinez? Is everything okay?" "Maria, how long have you worked here?" 23 years. Since just after Mr. Chen died. Grace, she saved me, gave me the job when... She hesitated. "There's something you need to know." An hour later, I had the full story. Maria had worked at one of the hotels Sterling had taken over. She had seen one of his stage accidents but had been too scared to speak out. Grace had hired her, protected her, and kept her statement safe. "There are others," Maria said. "Former staff from all the hotels Sterling bought. Grace kept us close, kept us safe, until the right time came." I spent the rest of the night making calls. By morning, I had statements from 15 former employees, all with the same story. Sterling's empire had been built on sabotage, corruption, and fear, and now it was time to bring it down. At 9:45 a.m., I walked into the grand ballroom. Thomas Fuller was already there, along with 2 men who looked like Sterling's lawyers. "The files," Thomas demanded. "Right here." I said, holding up a USB drive. But we should wait for the other guests first. What other? Before he could finish, the ballroom doors swung open. Maria led in a group of people, former hotel employees, all carrying documents. Behind them came an FBI team from the Public Corruption Unit responding to my early morning call. The lead agent stepped forward. Thomas Fuller, you're under arrest for the murder of Henry Chen and conspiracy to commit fraud. As the agents cuffed Thomas, Richard Sterling stormed in, red-faced with fury. You have no proof, he shouted. Actually, I said calmly, we have 30 years of proof. Grace Chen spent decades collecting evidence. Every bribe, every stage accident, every crooked deal. And more importantly, she protected the witnesses you thought you silenced. I gestured to the former employees. They're all ready to testify. Sterling's anger turned to panic. You'll regret this, he hissed. I have powerful friends. Commissioner Reynolds. I smiled. Check your phone, Mr. Sterling. The news is already everywhere. The fallout was massive. Sterling and several city officials were indicted. The Riverside Hotel chain collapsed as the truth came out. But the Grand Marina, we thrived. The case brought us national attention, and the settlement money from Sterling's assets helped restore the hotel to its former glory. Every chandelier was rewired, the marble floors polished, the Riverside restaurant became the hottest spot in town. Most importantly, we kept what made the hotel special, its people. The staff Grace had protected became part of its legacy, a reminder of her courage and foresight. A year later, at a memorial gala for Grace and Henry Chen, the new mayor declared the Grand Marina an official city landmark. Maria found me later on the terrace, watching the sunset over the river. Grace would be proud, she said softly, not just of the hotel, but of you. You're like her, a long-game player. I touched the jade pendant Grace had left me. She had taught me that success isn't just about business, it's about protecting what matters. People, principles, and truth. Yesterday, I found a note Grace had tucked into an old guest book. Hotels are more than buildings. They witness history. The Grand Marina survived corruption, and now stands as proof that patience, courage, and truth will always win. Keep its stories safe. Keep its people safer, and never stop believing in justice. I framed the note and hung it in my office. Next to it, I left space for new photos, new stories, new victories. Because Grace was right. Hotels aren't just buildings. They are places where life's most important moments unfold. And sometimes they are places where justice finally finds its stage.
The steady beep of the heart monitor was the first thing I heard when I opened my eyes. White ceiling, antiseptic smell, scratchy sheets, definitely a hospital room. But something felt wrong. The room was empty. No flowers, no cards, no worried family members dozing in uncomfortable chairs. My name is Alice, and I was about to discover just how alone I really was. Oh, good. You're awake, a nurse said, bustling in to check my vitals. You gave everyone quite a scare with that pneumonia. You've been out for nearly a week. Has my sister Elisa been here? I asked, my voice raspy from disuse. Or my parents. The nurse's smile faltered slightly. I haven't seen any visitors, honey, but I just started my shift. I reached for my phone on the bedside table, wincing at the IV pull. Dozens of missed calls from work, but nothing from family. Strange. I always visited Elisa when she was sick, bringing her favourite soup and trashy magazines. Miss Douglas? A man in a suit appeared in the doorway. I'm from hospital billing. We need to discuss your payment situation. My head was still foggy, but I logged into my banking app while he waited. The screen loaded and my stomach dropped. Where there should have been over $50,000 in savings, there was less than $100. There must be some mistake, I muttered, checking my other accounts. All drained. This isn't possible. I'm afraid without insurance or ability to pay, we'll need to discuss discharge options soon, the billing man said diplomatically. I was still staring at my phone in shock when a familiar voice cut through the tension. I'll handle the billing situation. Rita Wilkins, my workplace rival of 3 years, stood in the doorway, designer handbag on one arm and determination on her face. Rita, what are you doing here? She shooed the billing man away and pulled up a chair. Covering your ass, apparently. The office was worried when you didn't show up for a week. I did some digging. I don't understand what's happening, I said, fighting back tears. My accounts have been systematically drained over the past week, Rita finished. And I'm willing to bet I know who did it. Elisa. The name felt like ash in my mouth. But she's my sister. She wouldn't... The same sister who borrowed $15,000 for her emergency dental surgery last year. The one who still hasn't paid you back. I closed my eyes, memories flooding back. The countless loans, the emotional manipulation, the way my parents always took her side. She had access to my accounts, for emergencies because she's family. Rita's laugh was bitter. Family. Right. The same family that hasn't visited once while you were fighting for your life? Maybe they didn't know. They knew. Rita pulled out her phone, showing me a group text from my mother to the extended family. Alice is in the hospital with pneumonia. Elisa is handling everything. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. While I lay unconscious, my sister had stolen everything, and my parents had let her. Why are you helping me? I asked Rita. We've never exactly been friends. Because 3 years ago, my own sister did something similar, Rita said, her expression hardening, and I wish someone had been there to help me fight back. Fight back? Yes, fight back. You've spent years being the responsible one, the good daughter, the generous sister, and look where it got you. Rita leaned forward. I have resources, Alice. I have connections. And I am offering to help you get justice. I thought about all the times I'd covered for Elisa, all the money I'd given her, all the family events where I was criticized while she was praised. The empty hospital rooms seemed to echo with years of taken-for-granted sacrifices. Why now? I asked. Why offer this when we've been rivals for so long? Because I've watched you work your arse off while living in your sister's shadow. Because I respect your abilities, even if we don't always get along. And because... Rita smiled grimly. I really hate seeing manipulative people win. The heart monitor beeped steadily as I considered her words. The old Alice would have forgiven and forgotten, would have found some way to excuse Elisa's behaviour. But the old Alice hadn't woken up alone in a hospital bed, betrayed and robbed by her own blood. Okay, I said finally. I'm in. Where do we start? Rita's smile turned predatory. First, we get you out of here. Then, we start gathering evidence, because your sister made one crucial mistake. What's that? She thought you'd never wake up to catch her. Rita's guest room was twice the size of my old apartment bedroom. I sat cross-legged on the plush bed, surrounded by bank statements and transaction records she'd helped me obtain. Look at this, I said, holding up a printed statement. 3 separate withdrawals of $10,000 each, all within hours of me being admitted to the hospital. Rita peered over my shoulder, her reading glasses perched on her nose. And all from different branch locations. She was trying to avoid suspicion. I still can't believe she thought this through so carefully. My hands shook as I sorted through more papers. While I was fighting for my life, she was driving around town, emptying my accounts. People show their true colours when they think no one's watching. Rita handed me a cup of coffee and sat down beside me. Want to hear how I learned that lesson? I nodded, grateful for any distraction from the mounting evidence of my sister's betrayal. 3 years ago, my sister Diane was executor of our father's estate, Rita began, her voice tight. By the time I realized something was wrong, she'd liquidated most of his assets and moved to France with her boyfriend. Did you ever get justice? No, but I got something better. I built my own success bigger than anything she could have stolen. Rita's smile was sharp. And now I get Christmas cards from our mother asking for money, while Diane's living in a studio apartment in Paris, her boyfriend long gone. A text notification lit up my phone. My mother's name appeared on the screen. Why aren't you answering Elisa's calls? She's worried about you. Worried about getting caught, more likely, I muttered, showing Rita the message. Perfect timing. I have something to show you. Rita pulled out her laptop. Remember when you mentioned Elisa's new car? The Mercedes she said she got an amazing deal on? Yeah. Well, I had my friend at the dealership pull the paperwork. Rita turned the screen toward me. Look at the date of purchase. My stomach lurched. The day after I went into the hospital. And the down payment amount? $15,000. Exactly what she took from my savings account that morning. The reality of her calculated betrayal hit me fresh. She must have been planning this, waiting for an opportunity. There's more. Rita clicked through several screens. She's also made reservations at a luxury resort in Bali for next month. First-class tickets, premium suite. Using my money. I felt sick. All those times she said she was broke, that she needed help with rent. She was playing you. Just like she played your parents. Rita closed the laptop. Speaking of which, how many times has your mother texted you about forgiving family today? Only 3 so far. New record. I tried to laugh, but it came out more like a sob. Rita squeezed my shoulder. You know what the hardest part is? Accepting that they'll never admit they were wrong. Your parents will keep defending her, keep trying to guilt you into letting it go. Like they did with the college fund incident. A bitter memory surfaced. When Elisa borrowed my college savings for her failed boutique, Mom said I was being selfish for being upset. Said family helps family. And who helped you when you had to take out student loans? No one. I worked 2 jobs through college while Elisa was posting Instagram photos from Cancun. Rita stood up abruptly. Get dressed. We're going out. What? Where? To meet someone who can help us build an airtight case against your sister, because this isn't just about the money anymore, is it? I thought about years of manipulation, of being cast as the villain for expecting basic decency, of watching Elisa charm her way out of consequences while I cleaned up her messes. No, I said firmly. It's about justice. Good answer. Rita tossed me a coat. My friend Heath is a forensic accountant. He's expecting us for dinner. As we drove through the city, another text came through, this time from Elisa herself. Alice, please call me. I can explain everything. We're family. I showed it to Rita, who snorted. Family doesn't empty your bank account while you're in a coma. No, I agreed, turning off my phone. They don't. Rita pulled into the parking lot of an upscale restaurant. Ready to start fighting back? I thought about the Mercedes my sister was driving, bought with my stolen money. About the luxury vacation she was planning while I rebuilt my life from scratch. About our parents, who would rather believe her lies than face the truth about their golden child. More than ready, I said, stepping out of the car. It's time Elisa learned that karma doesn't care about family ties. Heath was nothing like I expected. Instead of a stuffy accountant in a suit, he was a tattooed man with kind eyes and a disarming smile. He listened intently as Rita and I laid out the situation over appetizers. Your sister's clever, but not as clever as she thinks, Heath said, spreading documents across the table. See these transactions? She tried to make them look like regular withdrawals, but there's a pattern. What kind of pattern? I leaned forward, studying the papers. She withdrew just under $10,000 each time to avoid triggering bank reporting requirements. Classic amateur move. He circled several entries, but she got sloppy with the timing. All these transactions happened within 48 hours. Rita nodded. That's called structuring. It's illegal. Very illegal, Heath confirmed. And I found something else interesting. He pulled up a website on his tablet. Your sister's been running a side business, selling luxury goods online. Want to guess where the inventory comes from? My blood ran cold as I recognized several items in the photos. Those are my things, my designer bags, my jewelry. I stopped at a familiar image. That's Mom's anniversary ring, the one she claimed she lost last year. Elisa's been selling family heirlooms? Rita's eyebrows shot up. Along with quite a few counterfeits, Heath added. Which is another federal offense. My phone buzzed. A text from Carson, my ex. We need to talk. It's about Eliza. Carson? Rita read over my shoulder. Isn't he the one who broke up with you right after Eliza started working at his company? Yeah, that was weird timing. I frowned at the message. He never gave me a real explanation. Reply, Heath suggested. He might have useful information. I typed quickly, when and where. The response came immediately. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Capital Coffee, come alone. It could be a trap, Rita warned. Elisa might have put him up to this. Or he might know something important. I showed them another text from Carson. Bring a USB drive. Heath whistled low. Definitely sounds like he's got dirt. I'll go, I decided. But I want you both nearby, just in case. Smart girl. Rita raised her wine glass. Now, let's talk about phase 2 of our plan. Heath pulled out more papers. I've documented every illegal transaction, every fraudulent sale. But we need to be strategic about how we use this information. What do you mean? Your sister's got your parents wrapped around her finger, he explained. If we move too fast, they'll help her cover it up. We need to build an undeniable case. And then? I asked. Then we hit her with everything at once. No time to spin stories, no chance to manipulate the narrative. Rita's smile was wolfish. We take away what she values most, her image. My phone lit up again. My mother this time. Eliza's crying, how can you be so cruel? She's your sister. I showed the message to Rita and Heath. See what I'm dealing with. Classic enabler behavior, Heath said. They've built their whole reality around Elisa being the victim. When you threaten that narrative, they attack me instead of facing the truth, I finished. Which is exactly why this has to be handled carefully, Rita insisted. We need to... She was cut off by another text notification. This one made my heart stop. I know what you're planning, Elisa had written. Back off now, or I'll tell Mom and Dad what really happened the night of your graduation. Rita caught my expression. What is it? She's threatening me. I handed her the phone, my hands shaking. But she's bluffing. Nothing happened at graduation. Doesn't matter if it's true, Heath said grimly. She's showing her hand. She's scared. Good, Rita declared. Scared people make mistakes. And we'll be ready when she does. I stared at my sister's threat, feeling something shift inside me. The old fear was still there, but now it was overshadowed by determination. You know what? I said, picking up my phone. I'm done being manipulated. I typed quickly, go ahead, tell them whatever you want. I'm done protecting your lies. That's my girl, Rita said proudly. Now, about tomorrow's meeting with Carson. As Heath and Rita planned security measures for the coffee shop meeting, I felt stronger than I had in weeks. Elisa had always used my fear of conflict against me, counted on me backing down to keep the peace. But she'd never faced this version of me, the one who had nothing left to lose. My phone buzzed one final time that night. Elisa again. You'll regret this. I smiled and turned off my phone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of my sister's threats. Tomorrow would bring new revelations, but tonight, I finally felt in control. Ready for dessert? Heath asked, waving down the waiter. Ready for everything, I replied, and I meant it. Capital Coffee was busy when I arrived, exactly at 10 a.m. I spotted Carson immediately, hunched over his laptop in a corner booth. He looked different, tired, guilty. Rita and Heath were positioned at separate tables, pretending to work while watching my back. Hey, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Carson jumped slightly. Alice, you came. He glanced around nervously. Did anyone follow you? Why would someone follow me? He leaned forward, voice low. Because your sister's been watching me ever since she found out I was gathering evidence. Evidence of what exactly? Carson pulled out a USB drive. Everything. The blackmail, the theft, the fake investment schemes. She's been doing this for years, Alice. Not just to you. My hand shook slightly as I took the drive. Why are you helping me now? Why not when we were together? Because I was a coward. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. She threatened to ruin my career if I told you the truth about why we really broke up. Which was? She came to my office the day before I ended things. Showed me doctored photos that made it look like I was embezzling company funds. Said she'd send them to the board unless I broke up with you and gave her a job. I felt the blood drain from my face. She blackmailed you into breaking my heart and into promoting her 6 months later. His laugh was hollow. But I've been keeping records. Every threat, every scheme, it's all on that drive. A shadow fell across our table. My sister stood there, designer purse clutched tight, face twisted with rage. "Well, well," Elisa said, her voice dripping venom. "Having a cozy little chat." "How did you—" Carson started. "Find you?" She smiled coldly. "I put a tracker on your car weeks ago, darling. Paranoid, I know, but look how right I was." I stood up slowly. "You're done, Elisa. We have proof of everything." "Do you?" She pulled out her phone. "Because I have proof too. Like this video of Carson accepting bribes last year. Anonymous tip to the SEC would end his career instantly." "That video's fake," Carson protested, but his voice wavered. "Want to risk finding out?" Elisa's smile widened. "And Alice, dear sister, remember Dad's heart condition. Imagine how he'd react to learning his beloved daughter has been plotting against family. Using Dad's health to manipulate me? That's low, even for you." "I'm protecting our family," she hissed. "Something you clearly don't care about anymore." "Protecting family?" Rita's voice cut through the tension as she approached our table. "Is that what you call stealing from your sister while she was dying?" Elisa's composure cracked slightly. "Stay out of this. You don't know anything." "Actually," Heath said, joining us with his tablet, "we know everything, including your little counterfeit operation. FBI takes that pretty seriously." "You're bluffing," Elisa said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. I pulled out my phone, playing a recording, Elisa's own voice bragging about how she'd drained my accounts while I was unconscious. "Remember that drunk call you made to your friend last week?" I asked quietly. "Bragging about how clever you were?" "She sent me the recording this morning. Turns out not everyone admires your schemes." Elisa's face went white. "That's inadmissible." "In court, maybe," Heath interrupted. "But in the court of public opinion? In front of Mom and Dad, the country club committee?" "What do you want?" Elisa's voice was barely a whisper. "Everything you stole from me, plus interest," I said firmly. "And you're going to confess to Mom and Dad. All of it. They'll never believe. They will when they see the evidence. Every transaction, every fake investment, every stolen heirloom you sold online." I leaned closer, including Mum's ring. Tears welled in Elisa's eyes, real ones this time, not the manipulative drops she usually summoned. "You're supposed to be the good sister, the one who forgives." I was. For years I forgave everything. But you mistook kindness for weakness. I stood up straighter. "That was your biggest mistake." "I'll destroy you," she threatened, but her voice cracked. "No," I said calmly. "You won't. Because if you try, everything on this drive goes public. Your choice." Elisa looked around wildly, finding no allies in the hard faces surrounding her. For the first time in her life, charm and tears wouldn't save her. "You have 24 hours to start transferring the money back," Rita said professionally, "and to schedule a family meeting." Elisa turned and fled, leaving her designer purse behind. Inside, I knew we'd find more evidence. She always kept receipts of her schemes, too arrogant to imagine being caught. "You okay?" Carson asked softly. I looked at the USB drive in my hand, at Rita and Heath standing guard, at the empty space where my sister had stood. "No," I admitted. "But I will be." The doorbell rang at exactly noon. I opened it to find my mother standing there, her face a mask of disapproval. "We need to talk about what you're doing to your sister," she said, brushing past me into Rita's house. "Perfect timing," Rita called from the living room. "We were just going through some interesting financial records." Mom froze at the sight of the documents spread across the coffee table. "What is all this?" "Proof," I said simply. "Sit down, Mom. There's something you need to see." "I don't need to see anything. Elisa already told me you're trying to frame her out of jealousy." She remained standing, arms crossed. "Did she tell you about this?" I held up a printed receipt. "The sale of your anniversary ring? The one she said she helped you look for when it was lost?" Mom's face paled. That can't be right. Or these?" I spread out more papers. Bank transfers from my accounts while I was in the hospital, security footage of her using my cards at different branches, the Mercedes she bought with my money the day after I was admitted. "She said you gave her permission." While I was in a coma? My voice cracked. Really, Mom? Rita stepped forward, tablet in hand. Mrs. Blake, I understand this is difficult, but please look at these documents. Your daughter Elisa has been systematically stealing from both Alice and you for years. No, Mom shook her head. There must be some explanation. There is, Heath said, entering from the kitchen. Your younger daughter is a con artist who counted on family loyalty to cover her tracks. Who are you people? Mom demanded. Alice, what have you done? What I should have done years ago, gotten proof. I pulled up the audio recording from the coffee shop confrontation. Elisa's voice filled the room, threatening Carson, admitting to her schemes. Mom sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. That's not my Elisa, she wouldn't… But she did, Rita said gently. And there's more. For the next hour, we showed her everything. The fake investment schemes, the stolen heirlooms, the counterfeit operation. With each revelation, my mother seemed to age years. Why? She finally whispered. We gave her everything. That was the problem, I said quietly. You gave her everything, including permission to take from me. We never… You did. Every time you dismissed my concerns. Every time you said, that's just how she is, or family helps family. Every time you made me feel guilty for having boundaries. My phone buzzed. A text from Elisa. Mom's not answering her phone. What lies are you telling her? No lies needed, I muttered, showing Mom the message. The truth is, damning enough. Mom stared at her own phone as it lit up with another text from Elisa. Her hands shook as she read it. She's threatening to tell your father I knew about some of the missing jewelry, Mom said, voice hollow. She's blackmailing me now. Welcome to my world, I said, but without satisfaction. It hurt to see my mother's illusions shatter even if they needed to. What do we do? Mom looked up, suddenly seeming small and lost. First, you stop enabling her, Rita said firmly. No more excuses, no more cover-ups. Then, Heath added, you help us recover what she's stolen, starting with Alice's money. Your father, Mom started. Needs to know the truth, I finished. All of it. It'll break his heart. Elisa already broke it. He just doesn't know yet. Mom's phone rang, Elisa's face lighting up the screen. We all watched as Mom's finger hovered over the answer button. Your choice, Mom, I said softly. Keep protecting her lies, or stand with the truth. Mom took a deep breath and declined the call. Then, with shaking fingers, she typed out a message. I've seen the evidence. No more lies, Elisa. Seconds later, Elisa's response appeared. They're turning you against me. I'm your daughter. So am I said quietly. You just forgot that for a while. Mom started crying, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Alice. I should have seen it. Should have protected you too. It's not too late, Rita said, handing Mom a tissue. But what happens next depends on you. Elisa needs help, Mom admitted. Real help, not more enabling. And consequences, Heath added. The legal kind. Mom nodded slowly, straightening her shoulders. When should we tell your father? Tonight, I said, before Elisa can spin more lies. He'll be home at 6, Mom said, standing up. I'll text you when he's ready. As she left, she hugged me for the first time since my hospital stay. I failed you, she whispered, but I won't fail you again. I watched her drive away, feeling both lighter and heavier. The truth was finally emerging, but the hardest conversations still lay ahead. Ready for round 2? Rita asked. Ready or not, I replied. It's time. Dad's study had always been Elisa's territory. She'd perch on his desk, making him laugh with stories while I stood in the doorway, feeling like an intruder. Tonight I sat directly across from him, manila folders spread between us like battle lines. This better be important, he said, frowning at Mom's tear-stained face. I have a meeting in an hour. Cancel it, Mom said quietly. This can't wait. I opened the first folder. Dad, what do you know about your retirement account? What kind of question is that? I check it every week. Check it now. He pulled up the account on his computer, confidence morphing into confusion. That's impossible. There must be a mistake. No mistake, I said, sliding over bank statements. Elisa's been siphoning money from it for months. Small amounts, nothing you'd notice right away. Ridiculous, he snapped. Eliza handles some of our investments, yes, but she'd never sell Mom's anniversary ring. I pulled up the online listing, or use my medical emergency to clean out my accounts. Alice, if you're jealous of your sister's success, Mom's voice cracked. Show him the Mercedes papers, Alice. I laid out the documents one by one. The car purchase, the luxury vacation bookings, the trail of stolen money leading to both. She was at the hospital when I was admitted, I explained, not to help me, but to access my accounts before anyone noticed I was unconscious. Dad's face had gone pale. There has to be an explanation. There is. I played the recording of Elisa threatening Carson, then the one of her bragging about stealing my money. Finally, the security footage from the bank. No, Dad whispered. My little girl wouldn't. His phone buzzed. Eliza's timing was always perfect. Daddy, her voice came through on speaker, sweet and panicked. Alice is telling horrible lies about me. She's trying to turn everyone against me because she's jealous. You know me, Daddy. You know I'd never... Stop. Dad's voice was different, older, harder. Are you in your new Mercedes right now, Princess? A pause. Yes, but... The one you bought the day after your sister went into the hospital? I can explain. With her money? His hands were shaking. While she was fighting for her life? Daddy, please. Come home. Now. He ended the call. The study fell silent except for Mom's quiet crying. Dad stared at the documents, shoulders slumped. How long? He finally asked. Years, Mom admitted. I suspected sometimes, but I didn't want to see it. She has a storage unit, I added quietly. Full of things she's stolen from both of you, including Dad's vintage watch collection that supposedly got lost in the move. Dad's head snapped up. The ones from my father? I nodded. She's been selling them piece by piece. His face crumpled. Those watches were supposed to be family heirlooms, passed down through generations. I enabled this, he said, voice rough. Every time I dismissed your concerns, every time I gave her money to invest, every time I chose not to question her explanations. A car door slammed outside, heels clicked on the pathway. She's here, Mom whispered. Good. Dad straightened up, looking older than I'd ever seen him. It's time she faced what she's done. The front door opened. Daddy? Elisa's voice called out, sugary sweet. What's going on? In here, Dad called back. She appeared in the doorway, designer outfit perfect, eyes already brimming with fake tears. Then she saw the documents on the desk. The tears vanished. Whatever Alice told you. Sit down. Dad's voice was steel. But Daddy, sit. Down. She sat, mask slipping as she realized her usual tactics wouldn't work. The police are on their way, I said quietly. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, Dad said. Family doesn't exploit medical emergencies to commit fraud. Family doesn't sell their grandfather's watches for profit. Elisa's face went white. The watches. Everything, Elisa. We know everything. She turned to Mom, desperate. Mommy, please. No more, Mom cut her off. No more manipulation. No more lies. Red and blue lights flashed through the study window. Elisa jumped up, but Dad's voice stopped her. Run and it gets worse, he warned. Stay, cooperate, and we might be able to help you. Help me? She laughed hysterically. I don't need help. I need you all to mind your own business. The doorbell rang. Mom went to answer it. One last chance, I said to my sister. Tell the truth. Take responsibility. Elisa's face twisted with rage. You'll regret this. All of you. No, Dad said sadly, watching officers enter the study. I already regret not seeing the truth sooner. As they led Elisa away, her threats echoing through the house, I finally felt the weight of years of deception lifting. The truth hurt, but lies had hurt more. The courthouse corridor felt endless as we waited for Eliza's hearing to begin. Rita sat beside me, reviewing last-minute documents, while Heath paced nervously. My parents sat across from us, looking shell-shocked and aged. "She's refusing the plea deal," Rita murmured, checking her phone. "Her lawyer's trying to talk sense into her, but she still thinks she can charm her way out of this," I finished. The courtroom doors opened. Carson emerged, looking drained after giving his testimony about the blackmail. "She didn't even look at me," he said, dropping into a chair. "Just sat there smirking like this is all some game." "Because it always has been to her," Mum said quietly. "We taught her that there were no consequences." A court officer appeared. "They're ready for you, Ms. Douglas." Inside the courtroom, Elisa sat at the defendant's table in an expensive white suit, playing the innocent victim perfectly. Her mask slipped when she saw all of us file in together, replaced by a flash of rage. The court calls Alice Douglas to the stand. Walking to the witness box, I felt Elisa's glare burning into me. I'd practiced this moment with Rita for weeks, but nothing prepared me for facing my sister directly. "Ms. Douglas," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court about the events following your hospitalization." I described waking up alone, discovering my accounts drained, the systematic theft that had occurred while I was unconscious. With each detail, I watched my sister's perfect facade crack further. "And the defendant is your sister?" the prosecutor confirmed. "Yes." "Had she shown similar behavior before?" "Objection," Elisa's lawyer called out. "I'll rephrase," the prosecutor said smoothly. "Had the defendant previously taken money from you?" "Many times. Always with promises to pay it back. Always with emotional manipulation when I asked about repayment." "And your parents?" "She stole from them too. Family heirlooms, retirement funds, anything she could access." Elisa's lawyer began his cross-examination, trying to paint me as the jealous sister, but the evidence was too solid. Bank records don't lie. Security footage doesn't lie. Audio recordings don't lie. "No further questions," he finally conceded. As I stepped down, Elisa stood up suddenly. "This is ridiculous. They're all lying because they're jealous of my success." "Ms. Douglas, sit down," the judge warned. "No, I worked hard for everything I have. They're just trying to destroy me because they can't handle that I'm better than them." "Ms. Douglas, tell them, Daddy." Elisa turned to our father. "Tell them how I've always been the successful one, the special one." The judge banged his gavel. "Order!" "You're all pathetic," Elisa was screaming now. "I deserve that money more than any of you. Alice was always the boring one, the responsible one. I made that money interesting. I made it matter." Two court officers moved to restrain her. "I should have made sure you never woke up," she shrieked at me. "You ruined everything." The courtroom erupted in gasps. Mom started crying. Dad looked like he'd been shot. "Remove the defendant," the judge ordered. "We'll resume after a brief recess." As they led Elisa away, still screaming threats, I felt Rita's hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. "You stood your ground." The recess lasted an hour. When we returned, Elisa sat silently, her makeup smeared, her perfect image shattered. Her lawyer looked defeated. The judge's verdict was clear and damning. Grand theft, fraud, blackmail. The evidence was overwhelming, and Elisa's outburst had destroyed any sympathy she might have garnered. 5 years, the judge announced, with possibility of parole after 3, contingent upon full restitution and completion of psychological counselling. Elisa didn't react. She just sat there staring straight ahead as if none of this was real. "I'm so sorry," Mum whispered as we left the courtroom. "We should have stopped this years ago." "You can't change the past," I said, watching them lead my sister away. "But we can learn from it." Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras and microphones. Rita helped shield me from their questions while Heath brought the car around. "What now?" Dad asked, looking lost. "Now we heal," I said, "and we make sure this never happens again." "Your accounts should be restored within the week," Heath added. "And I've already located most of the stolen items." "Including your watches, Dad," I said softly. "And Mom's ring." He nodded, tears in his eyes. The things don't matter anymore. We almost lost you and we didn't even realize it. As we drove away from the courthouse, I watched my sister's world of lies crumble in the rearview mirror. The truth had finally won, but victory felt hollow. We were all damaged, all changed by her betrayal. But maybe, just maybe, we could build something stronger from the ruins. The last box from Elisa's storage unit sat unopened on Rita's coffee table. Inside were the final pieces of our family's stolen history. Photos, jewelry, memories she'd tried to sell. "You don't have to open it today," Rita said, pouring wine for our small gathering. "Yes, I do." I lifted the lid, revealing layers of tissue-wrapped items. "Mum and Dad should be here soon. They need to see everything." Heath helped me unwrap each piece, documenting them for the final restitution report. Carson sat nearby, adding details to his testimony for the civil suit that would follow the criminal case. The doorbell rang. My parents entered, looking both stronger and more fragile than they had at the trial. Mum carried a familiar leather album. "Found this in her apartment," she said, setting it down. "It's your baby photos, the ones she claimed were lost in the flood." "Of course they were." I managed a small laugh. "She really did try to erase me, didn't she?" "Not anymore," Dad said firmly, sitting down beside me. "Look what I picked up today." He pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was his father's pocket watch, the first piece Elisa had stolen and sold. "How?" I gasped. "Rita's contacts traced it to a collector in Seattle," Heath explained. "Once he learned it was stolen, he returned it immediately." "Speaking of returns," Rita interjected, "the bank completed the transfer this morning. All your accounts have been restored, plus interest." Mum touched a framed photo we'd just unwrapped. "I remember this day. Your high school graduation. Elisa was so angry that all the attention was on you." That's when it started, I realized. The stealing, the lies. She couldn't stand not being the center of everything. "We fed that need," Dad admitted. "Every time we excused her behavior, we made it worse." The doorbell rang again. This time it was a delivery, a thick envelope from the prison. "It's from Elisa," I said, recognizing the handwriting. "Do you want to read it?" Rita asked. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a key. "Dear family, the psychiatrist here says I need to make amends. I don't know if I can, or want to, but she says I have to try." The key opens a safety deposit box at First National. Everything I couldn't sell is there. Family photos, Dad's military medals, Mum's diary. I kept the things that would hurt you most to lose. I'm not sorry for taking what I deserved, but maybe I'm sorry for how I took it. Don't visit, don't write back. Just take the stuff and forget me. Elisa. "Well," Carson said after a long silence, "that's almost an apology." "It's more than I expected," Mum whispered. "It's not enough," Dad said firmly, "but it's something." I set the letter down among the recovered treasures. You know what? I don't need her apology. I don't need anything from her anymore. Rita raised her glass. "To freedom." "To truth," Heath added. "To family," Mum said, looking at me with tears in her eyes. "The real kind." "To karma," Carson smiled. "To healing," Dad finished. I looked around at these people, my unexpected allies, my restored parents, my true family. The empty space where Elisa should have been didn't hurt anymore. "To second chances," I said, raising my glass, "and to being strong enough to demand them." My phone buzzed. Another message from the prison. I ignored it. Elisa's words couldn't control me anymore. Her threats couldn't frighten me. Her manipulation couldn't reach me. What should we do with all this? Heath gestured at the boxes of recovered items. "Build something new," I decided. "Mum, remember how you always wanted to make family history albums?" She brightened. "Yes, let's do it. Right now. Let's put everything back where it belongs, but better this time. Stronger." We spent the evening sorting through recovered treasures, sharing stories, rebuilding connections. Each item found its proper place. Dad's watches in their case, Mum's jewelry in her box, my photos back in their albums. The space left by Elisa's betrayal slowly filled with something else. Truth, strength, and real love. the kind that builds up instead of tearing down. You know what? Rita said as we finished. She tried to destroy your family, but she actually forced you to build a better one. I looked at my parents, laughing together as they rediscovered old memories. At Carson, finally free of guilt and fear. At Rita and Heath, who'd become more than allies. She did, I agreed, just not the way she intended. The last item from the box was a small mirror, one Elisa used to practice her innocent expressions in. I closed the box without putting it back. Some things were better left in the past. "Ready to go home?" Dad asked. I smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in months. I already am.
The letter trembles in my hands, the familiar letterhead of Parker Industries mocking me after 5 years of silence. My father's signature, once a symbol of authority that made me cower, now looks desperate and shaky. I almost laugh at the irony. I'm Lexi, and the last time I saw my father, he was throwing my engineering degree in my face, telling me I was dead to him. All because I refused to marry the son of his business partner, choosing instead to pursue my dreams of becoming an engineer. "You're really going to open that?" Ben asks, peering over my shoulder. His presence steadies me, as it has since we met in graduate school. "I have to know," I whisper, tearing the envelope. The words blur together at first, but certain phrases jump out. Dire circumstances. Need your expertise. Family legacy at stake. My father, the mighty Brian Parker, is begging for my help. Well, Ben's voice is gentle. He knows what this means to me. "He's desperate," I say, dropping the letter on our kitchen counter. "The company's failing. He needs an engineering expert to salvage their new sustainable energy project. And naturally, he comes crawling to you now." Ben's usually kind face hardens. He was there to pick up the pieces after my father disowned me. The memory floods back unbidden. "An arranged marriage, Lexi. Do you know what this alliance could mean for our family?" My father's voice had boomed through his study. "Instead, you waste your time with this engineering nonsense." "It's my life," I had screamed back. "I won't let you sell me off like property." His face had turned purple. "Then you are no longer my daughter." My Aunt Nancy's call interrupts my thoughts. "I assume you got the letter?" she says without preamble. "How bad is it really, Aunt Nancy?" She sighs. "Worse than he's letting on. Zane Ross is circling like a vulture, looking to hostile takeover. Your sister Valeria is trying to help, but—" She trails off. "Val, she's involved now?" "She's trying to follow in your footsteps, actually. Taking night classes in business. Your father doesn't know." My heart clenches. Val was just 18 when I left, watching wide-eyed as I was cast out. Now she's secretly fighting the same battle. "There's more," Nancy continues. "The Sustainable Energy Project? It's revolutionary. If it fails, hundreds of jobs will be lost. This isn't just about your father anymore." I press my forehead against the cool window of our apartment, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears. He had 5 years to apologize, Aunt Nancy. 5 years to acknowledge he was wrong. "I know, sweetheart, but maybe this is your chance, not just for revenge, but to change things, really change them." An idea begins to form in my mind. The engineering department is still all men, isn't it? "You know your father. Women are too emotional for technical work." She mimics his gruff voice. "What if—" I turn to Ben, who's listening intently. "What if I could save the company and force him to create opportunities for women in STEM?" Ben's eyes light up. "Make him put his money where his mouth is?" "Exactly. A scholarship program for women in engineering, mandatory diversity hiring quotas, real lasting change." "He'll never agree," Nancy warns. "He will if he's desperate enough." I pick up the letter again, determination replacing the hurt. "Tell him I'm coming home, but he better be ready for my terms." "Lexi," Ben starts, concern in his voice. I know what I'm doing, I assure him, though my hands shake as I reach for my phone to book a flight. He wanted a dutiful daughter who'd sacrifice herself for the family business. Well, he's about to get exactly what he wished for, just not in the way he expected. Want me to come with you? Ben offers. I shake my head. I need to do this alone, but keep your phone on. I might need your expertise when I start digging into their technical problems. As I pack my bag that night, I find my old family photo. We look happy, Dad, Val, and me. Mom had just died, but we were still holding it together. Before status and tradition became more important than his daughter's happiness. I'm not coming home to forgive you, Dad. I whisper to his smiling image. I'm coming home to show you exactly what your engineering nonsense can do. And this time, you'll have to watch as your daughter dismantles your precious patriarchy, piece by piece. I zip up my suitcase, my heart racing with equal parts anticipation and dread. Tomorrow, I return to face my past. But this time, I'm not the scared 23-year-old he threw out. This time, I'm the one with the power to save or destroy everything he holds dear. And God help him if he tries to stop me. The Parker mansion looms before me, exactly as imposing as I remember. My Uber driver whistles as he helps with my luggage. Nice place. I force a smile and tip him generously. The front door opens before I reach it, and there's Val, practically bouncing with nervous energy. Lexi! She throws herself into my arms, and for a moment, I'm transported back in time. She still smells like strawberry shampoo. I can't believe you're really here. Look at you, I say, holding her at arm's length. All grown up. She's dressed in a crisp business suit, so different from the teenager I left behind. Ms. Parker. Thompson, our old butler, appears behind Val. His eyes are warm despite his formal tone. Welcome home. Home. The word feels foreign now. Where is he? In his study, Val answers, her excitement dimming. He's been there all morning. Of course he has. The same room where he disowned me. How fitting. Let's not keep him waiting then. I straighten my blazer and follow Thompson through the familiar hallways. Family photos line the walls, but I notice all traces of me have been removed. Classy Dad. Val grabs my hand. He's different now. The company troubles have aged him. Good, I mutter, then immediately regret it when I see her face fall. Thompson knocks on the study door. Sir, Ms. Lexi is here. Enter. My father's voice sends an involuntary shiver down my spine. I squeeze Val's hand once, then let go. This is my battle. He's standing behind his desk, and Val's right. He looks older. Gray hair has replaced the black, and deep lines crease his face, but his eyes are the same. Cold, calculating. Lexi, he nods stiffly. Father. I remain by the door, arms crossed. Quite a letter you sent. He clears his throat. Yes, well, desperate times. Clearly. I walk to his desk, placing my palms flat on its surface. Let's skip the small talk. Show me the numbers. He bristles at my tone, but slides a folder across the desk. I flip through it, my stomach dropping. It's worse than Aunt Nancy suggested. The Sustainable Energy Project? I ask. Bleeding money. Technical issues we can't solve. And Zane Ross is circling like a vulture, I know. I close the folder. I can fix this. Hope flickers in his eyes. You will help? For a price. His jaw tightens. Name it. I pull out a document from my briefcase. My terms, non-negotiable. He reads, his face growing redder with each line. This is outrageous. 50% of new engineering hires must be women, a multi-million-dollar scholarship fund for women in STEM, mandatory diversity training, and I want full control of the Sustainable Energy Division. I add calmly. No interference. He slams the paper down. You're using our crisis to push your feminist agenda. No, Father, I'm using your crisis to drag this company into the 21st century. Sign it or I walk. You wouldn't. Try me. I meet his glare. I'm not that scared little girl anymore. I'm the best in my field and you know it. That's why you called me. Val steps forward. Dad, please, we need her. He whirls on her. Stay out of this, Valeria. No, her voice is firm. I won't. Lexi's right. This company needs to change. I'm tired of being the only woman in board meetings, of being patted on the head and called sweetheart by men twice my age. I stare at my sister with newfound respect. She's grown a backbone while I was gone. My father sinks into his chair, suddenly looking every bit his age. You've thought this through, haven't you? 5 years of thinking, I reply. Sign it and I start tomorrow. Don't, and I'm on the next flight out. Your choice. The silence stretches. Finally, he picks up his pen. You're as stubborn as your mother was. Thank you, I say, watching him sign. It's the first compliment he's given me in years. He slides the contract back. The guest room is ready for you. No need. I'm staying at a hotel. I gather my things, tucking the signed contract safely away. I'll be here at 8 tomorrow morning. Have the engineering team ready. At the door, I pause. Oh, and Father, next time you see Zane Ross, tell him his vulture days are numbered. Val follows me out. That was amazing. But are you sure you don't want to stay here? I hug her tight. Baby steps, Val. Besides, I pull back with a grin. I have a feeling Dad's about to learn just how emotional women engineers can be. As my taxi pulls away, I text Ben. Phase 1 complete. Time to show them what we can do. His reply comes instantly. Give 'em hell, babe. Oh, I plan to. This is just the beginning. 8 a.m., and I'm already drowning in technical specifications. The engineering team, all men of course, stare at me like I'm an alien species as I pace the conference room. So, let me get this straight. I tap the whiteboard where I've mapped out their current system. You're losing 40% efficiency in the energy conversion process, and nobody thought to check the thermal regulation systems? Steve, the head engineer, shifts uncomfortably. We've tried everything, except the obvious. I circle the problem areas in red. These cooling systems are completely inadequate for the heat output. Who approved these specs? Silence fills the room. Then a smooth voice from the doorway. I did. I turned to find Zane Ross leaning against the doorframe, expensive suit and practiced smile in place. Ah, the prodigal daughter returns. Mr. Ross, I keep my voice neutral. I wasn't aware you had engineering oversight. I've been consulting on this project. He strolls in like he owns the place. Your father values my input. Clearly, I point to the specs. Your input is costing us millions. His smile doesn't waver. Perhaps we should discuss this privately? Nothing to discuss. I'm scrapping these designs and starting fresh. That's not your decision to make. His voice hardens. Actually, it is. Full control of the Sustainable Energy Division, remember? Or did my father not mention our agreement? The engineering team watches our exchange like a tennis match. Zane's eye twitches, the first crack in his perfect facade. A word outside, please. He gestures to the door. No time. Val, could you pull up the quarterly financials? My sister, who's been quietly taking notes in the corner, jumps to action. The projector flickers to life, and I start connecting dots that have been nagging at me since reviewing the books. Interesting, I mutter, tracing the money flow. Very interesting. What is it? Val asks. These equipment purchases. I highlight several transactions. We're paying triple market rate, all through the same supplier. I turn to Zane. Your supplier, if I'm not mistaken? His smile vanishes. I should call your father. Please do. I'd love to explain how you've been bleeding the company dry with inflated contracts while sabotaging our technical progress. The door bursts open. My father storms in, face red. What's the meaning of this? Zane tells me you're causing problems. I cut him off. Dad, look at these numbers. Really look at them. He scans the screen, frowning. These can't be right. Oh, they're right. And that's just the beginning. I pull up more documents. Every decision Zane has made has pushed us closer to bankruptcy. Almost like he's working with someone who wants to buy the company cheap. Zane's cool demeanor cracks completely. These are baseless accusations, are they? Val speaks up, her voice shaking but determined. Because I found something interesting in the competitor analysis. She slides a folder across the table. Zane's been meeting with Apex Corp's CEO, the same company that's been trying to buy us out. My father sinks into a chair, the truth hitting him like a physical blow. Zane, we've been friends for 20 years. Friends? I laugh harshly. He's been playing you, Dad, using your pride and your outdated beliefs against you. Why do you think he pushed so hard against hiring women engineers? Because he knew we'd spot his shoddy work in seconds. The engineering team murmurs in agreement. Steve stands up. She's right, sir. We've been saying something was off with these designs, but Mr. Ross always overruled us. Zane backs toward the door. This is ridiculous. Brian, you can't possibly believe. Security. My father's voice is deadly quiet. Please escort Mr. Ross out and call our lawyers. As security leads a protesting Zane away, I turn back to the whiteboard. Right, now that's dealt with, let's fix this mess. Steve, get your team started on new thermal calculations. Val, I need complete audit of all contracts from the last 3 years. Lexi, my father says softly, I should have seen it. Yes, you should have. I keep my eyes on the whiteboard. Your prejudices made you vulnerable, but we can fix this. I face the engineering team. Starting with some new perspectives, I'm bringing in 3 women engineers tomorrow. Any objections? They shake their heads quickly. Steve actually looks relieved. Thank God, we've been understaffed for months. Good. I check my phone. A text from Ben with some thermal regulation suggestions. Let's get to work. We've got a company to save. As everyone files out, Val touches my arm. That was brilliant. No, I smile at her. We were brilliant. Nice work with that competitor analysis. She beams. Think Dad's finally getting it? I watch our father staring at Zane's empty chair, looking lost. He's learning. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from trusting the wrong people and doubting the right ones. Speaking of trust, Val whispers, I found something else in the old files. Something about Mom's shares in the company. You need to see this. My heart skips. Show me after lunch. Right now, we have a thermal regulation system to redesign. And maybe, just maybe, a father to re-educate. The boardroom feels like a pressure cooker. I stand at the head of the table, surrounded by aging men in expensive suits, all wearing identical expressions of skepticism. Val sits to my right, tablet ready. The 3 new women engineers I hired, Sarah, Maria, and Jasmine, flank my left, their credentials speaking louder than any defense I could offer. This is unprecedented. Board member Richard adjusts his tie nervously. A complete overhaul of the energy system in just 2 weeks? What's unprecedented is how long you let this company operate with faulty technology, I counter, pulling up our new designs. Sarah, walk them through the improvements. Sarah stands, confident despite the hostile stares. Our redesigned thermal regulation system has already shown a 60% efficiency increase in initial tests. We've cut operational costs by... The boardroom door slams open. Zane strides in, flanked by 2 lawyers. I'm afraid this meeting needs to be postponed, he announces, dropping a thick folder on the table. I'm here to address some concerning irregularities. My father rises. You're not welcome here. Actually, I am. Zane's smile is predatory. As a major shareholder, I have every right to attend board meetings, and I've found some interesting details about your daughter's contract. Val grabs my arm. Lexi, I shake her off, keeping my voice steady. Please, enlighten us. Your engineering license. He slides a document forward. It was temporarily suspended last year due to a conflict of interest investigation. The board members murmur. I clench my fists. An investigation that cleared me completely. After 3 months. 3 months during which you were technically unlicensed, making your current contract with Parker Industries invalid. That's absurd, Sarah interjects. A temporary suspension that's been lifted means she was unqualified when she signed, Zane interrupts. Everything she's done here is unauthorized, including hiring you. The room erupts in chaos. Board members arguing, lawyers shuffling papers, my father looking stricken. But all I can focus on is Zane's smug face. Enough! Val's voice cuts through the noise. She stands, trembling but determined. Before anyone makes any decisions, you need to see this. She projects a document onto the screen. Mom's will, the real one. My father goes pale. Valeria, don't. Mom left her shares to us. Val continues. 30% of the company, split between Lexi and me. Shares that somehow ended up in Zane's control instead. The room falls silent. I stare at my father, realization dawning. You gave Mom's shares to him? It was temporary, he whispers, just until the girls were older. Older? I laugh bitterly. I'm running a Fortune 500 engineering division, and Val's getting her MBA. How much older do we need to be? Zane's composure slips. Brian, this is a family matter. You're right, it is. I turn to the board. And as rightful shareholders, we demand an immediate audit of all share transfers since our mother's death. You can't, Zane starts. Actually, we can. Val pulls up another document. I filed the paperwork this morning. The SEC is already investigating. Zane lunges for her tablet, but Sarah and Maria step between them. Security appears at the door, summoned by Jasmine's discreet text. Mr. Ross, the head of security says firmly, please come with us. As they lead him out, he turns back. This isn't over, Lexi. You have no idea what you're dealing with. No, I correct him. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Dad, a word? The board files out, leaving me alone with my father and Val. He looks ancient, slumped in his chair. Why? I demand. Why give her shares to him? The company was struggling after your mother died. Zane offered to help, promised to return the shares. He rubs his face. I was grieving, desperate. So you stole from your daughters? I thought I was protecting you? He slams his hand on the table. Both of you, this business, it destroys families. Look what it did to your mother. Val gasps. What do you mean? What it did to Mom? But before he can answer, my phone buzzes. It's Ben. Emergency at the test site. System malfunction. Get here now. This conversation isn't over, I warn my father, gathering my things. Val, come with me. Sarah, Maria, Jasmine, meet us at the lab. As we rush out, Val grabs my arm. Lexi, what did he mean about Mom? I don't know. I hit the elevator button repeatedly. But I'm starting to think her car accident wasn't as accidental as we were told. The elevator doors open and we step in, both lost in thought. Just before they close, I catch a glimpse of my father through the boardroom windows. He's holding Mom's photo from his desk, shoulders shaking. For the first time since coming back, I wonder if my revenge might cost more than I bargained for. But the test site alarm blares again on my phone, and I push the thought away. one crisis at a time. Smoke billows from the test site as Val and I screech to a halt in my rental car. Sarah and Maria are already there, frantically working at the control panel. The prototype sustainable energy reactor, our last hope for saving the company, is making sounds no reactor should make. What happened? I demand, rushing over. Temperature spike, Sarah explains, fingers flying over the keyboard. The new cooling system failed completely. That's impossible. I checked the readings. We triple-checked everything. Someone sabotaged it, Jasmine calls from inside the control room. Look at this. On her screen, lines of foreign code scroll past. A virus, she explains, triggered to activate during the final test sequence. Val peers at the screen. Can you stop it? Not fast enough. I run calculations in my head. We need to shut it down manually, now. The manual override is inside the testing chamber, Maria warns. With these temperatures, I'm already grabbing protective gear. Keep trying to hack it if I'm not out in 5 minutes. I'm coming with you. Val starts forward, but I push her back. No, I need you to call Ben. He helped design the failsafe. Get him on video chat. The testing chamber doors feel like an oven when I push through them. Sweat instantly soaks my protective suit. The reactor core pulses an angry red, warning lights flashing everywhere. Ben's online. Val's voice crackles through my headset. Lexi, listen carefully. Ben's familiar voice steadies me. The override panel is on the north wall. You'll need to input the sequence exactly as I say it. I fight through the heat, reaching the panel. Ready. Delta 79. Static cuts through the transmission. Ben? Signal's being jammed, Jasmine shouts. Someone's blocking all communications. The reactor groans ominously. Without the override sequence, this whole place will melt down. Think, Lexi, think. Then I spot something. A familiar pattern in the warning lights. The same pattern Mom used to teach us piano. Hot tears sting my eyes as her voice echoes in my memory. Remember, girls, every problem has a pattern. Find the pattern. Find the solution. Val! I scream into my headset. Mom's song, the one she taught us. What were the notes? What? Lexi, what are you? The piano song. Quick! D793A4. My fingers fly over the keypad, translating musical notes to numbers. The reactor shudders, then begins to power down. Emergency cooling systems kick in, flooding the chamber with blessed cold air. I stagger out to find Val waiting with an oxygen mask. How did you know? Mom? I gasp between breaths. She always said music and mathematics were the same language. Sarah runs up with her tablet. We traced the virus. It came from inside the company network. Someone with high-level access. Zane? Val suggests. Too obvious. I shake my head. He's been sloppy lately. This was elegant. Lexi, Jasmine calls from the control room. You need to see this. On her monitor is an old email chain from our mother to the board, dated 1 week before her death. I'm formally requesting an investigation into suspicious contracts, I read aloud. I believe someone is embezzling funds through our overseas operations. Val grabs my arm. The accident. It was right after this. There's more. Jasmine scrolls down. These contracts. They match the pattern we found in Zane's dealings, but they start years before he joined the company. My phone buzzes. Aunt Nancy. Turn on the news, she says without greeting. I grab Val's tablet, pulling up a live feed. Breaking news. Corporate scandal rocks industry. Whistleblower reveals decades of fraud. That's Marcus Thompson. Val points at the man being interviewed. Dad's old partner, the one who wanted you to marry his son. My blood runs cold as Marcus speaks. I can no longer keep silent about what happened to Julia Parker. Her death was no accident. Holy shit, Sarah whispers. My father bursts in, looking frantic. Lexi, Val, thank God you're safe. When I heard about the reactor, did you know? I cut him off, showing him Mom's emails. Did you know what they did to her? He sinks into a chair, looking broken. I suspected after she died, but Marcus threatened. He said you girls would be next. So you tried to marry me off to his son? My voice rises. To protect me? To get proof, he shouts. His son knew everything. If you had married him, you used me as bait? No, he deflates. I made so many mistakes. Trying to protect you both, I only made things worse. Val steps between us. The reactor sabotage. It wasn't Zane, was it? Marcus, our father confirms. He must have realized we were close to exposing him. The Sustainable Energy Project. It would have revealed the money trail. My phone buzzes again. Ben. FBI just arrived at Marcus's office. They're saying something about international fraud charges. I look at the reactor, still cooling down, then at my father's haunted face, and finally at Val's determined expression. Well, I say, straightening up, looks like we're not just saving a company anymore. We're getting justice for Mom, Val finishes. Our father stands. Tell me what you need. Everything, I answer. Every file, every memory, every detail about Mom's last days. It's time for the whole truth. And this time, no one's gonna stop us from finding it. Rain pounds against the study windows as I sort through Mom's old files. Val sits cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by papers, while our father paces, recounting that fatal week. Julia was acting strange, he says, working late, taking private calls. Then she left this. He hands me a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. Instructions to open it only if something happened to her. My hands shake as I break the seal. A USB drive falls out, along with a handwritten note. My darling girls, I read aloud, if you're reading this, I couldn't protect our company from the corruption I discovered, but maybe you can finish what I started. Val wipes her eyes. All this time, a knock interrupts us. Aunt Nancy bursts in, soaking wet. Marcus is dead. What? We all speak at once. Apparent suicide. Left a confession. She pulls out her phone, reading. Julia Parker discovered our scheme. We couldn't let her expose us. The brake lines were the cleanest solution. The room spins. Dad catches me before I fall. There's more, Nancy continues. He named names, board members, international partners, shell companies. It's bigger than we imagined. The FBI's here, Thompson announces from the doorway. They're asking for Ms. Lexi. Two agents enter, introducing themselves. The female agent, Rodriguez, speaks first. We need to talk about your mother's investigation. I just found out about it myself. I gesture to the scattered papers. Not that investigation. The male agent Miller corrects. The one you've been running for the past 3 weeks. Val gasps. I keep my face neutral. Explain. Someone's been accessing sealed federal records, Rodriguez says, using algorithms remarkably similar to ones your mother developed, following money trails she flagged 20 years ago. I glance at Jasmine's laptop, still running code in the corner. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Miller raises an eyebrow. Because the SEC just received an anonymous tip detailing exactly how Marcus Thompson's organization has been laundering money through sustainable energy projects worldwide, using your mother's original findings as a framework. Dad steps forward. My daughter was just trying to save our company and exposed an international fraud ring in the process. Rodriguez finishes. We're not here to arrest anyone, Ms. Parker. We need your help. Thunder crashes outside as I consider their words. What kind of help? Marcus's death complicates things. Miller explains. We need to move fast before his associates destroy evidence. Your mother's research, combined with your technical expertise, could crack their whole network. I finish, but I want something in return. Name it. Full immunity for everyone at Parker Industries who helped me, including my sister and father. The agents exchange looks. Done. And one more thing. I pull up the reactor data. Someone tried to kill me today. I want them. We know who it was, Rodriguez says quietly. That's why we're here. Marcus wasn't working alone. A familiar voice speaks from the doorway. No, he wasn't. We all turn. My blood freezes. Standing there, holding a gun, is Sarah. I'm sorry, Lexi, she says, her hand steady. But I can't let you finish what your mother started. You? Val breathes. But you helped us. I helped myself, Sarah snaps. 20 years building this network, hiding the money. Your mother almost ruined everything. And now her daughters, playing detective. Drop the weapon. Both agents draw their guns. Sarah laughs. You don't get it. I'm not alone. As if on cue, the power cuts out. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows. The reactor sabotage, I realize. You made it look like Marcus, while destroying evidence of the real financial network, she confirms. Clever girl, just like your mother, and just as dead if you don't. A deafening crash interrupts her as Ben bursts through the side door, tackling Sarah. The gun skids across the floor. Val dives for it while the agents move in. Perfect timing. I help Ben up once Sarah's cuffed. Jasmine called me, he explains. Said something felt off about Sarah's code. I was already on my way when the FBI called. Rodriguez secures Sarah while Miller checks the rest of the house. We'll need statements from everyone. First, I turn to Sarah. Tell me something. The night Mom died? Were you there? She meets my eyes, defiant. I made the call. Marcus did the rest. Dad lunges forward, but I stop him. No, she's not worth it. We'll destroy them properly, with evidence, with justice. Just like your mother would have wanted, Aunt Nancy says softly. As the agents lead Sarah away, I clutch Mom's USB drive. We need to finish this. Tonight. Ben, call Maria and Jasmine. Val, get your laptop. Dad. He straightens. Whatever you need. I need you to tell me everything about Mom's last investigation. Every detail you were too afraid to share before. Lightning illuminates the study as we gather around Mom's old desk. Her picture watches over us as we prepare to finish what she started. This time, the truth won't stay buried. Dawn breaks as we piece together the final connections. Empty coffee cups litter Mom's desk, surrounded by laptops displaying complex financial webs. Maria and Jasmine work furiously, tracking digital breadcrumbs while Ben cross-references data. Got another one, Val exclaims. Shell company in Singapore, connected to Sarah's network. Add it to the map, I direct, watching as our digital visualization grows more complex. 20 years of fraud, corruption, and murder, all laid bare. Agent Rodriguez returns with fresh coffee. We've got teams standing by worldwide. Once you give the signal, we move simultaneously. Almost there, Ben mutters, fingers flying over his keyboard. Just need to wait. He sits up straight. Lexi, look at this. On his screen, a familiar name appears in Mom's old files. My heart stops. Dad? I turn to where he's dozing in an armchair. Why is your signature on these offshore accounts? He jerks awake, face pale. What? These transfers, I point to the screen. They're authorized under your name, dating back to before Mom died. The room goes silent. Val stands slowly. Dad? He rubs his face, looking ancient. I didn't know, not at first. Marcus approached me about international investments, said we needed to diversify. The paperwork was complicated. You signed without reading, I finish flatly. By the time Julia discovered what they were using my signature for, it was too late. They had me compromised. So you let them kill her? Val's voice breaks. No. He stands, desperate. I tried to stop it. I called her that night, warned her not to drive the mountain road, but she said she had proof, was taking it to the authorities. Agent Miller appears in the doorway. Mr. Parker, we need to have a conversation. Wait, I interrupt. Dad, what proof? We haven't found anything concrete from that night. He slumps. Her laptop? She always backed everything up on it, but after the crash? It was never found, Jasmine finishes, already typing. Unless the insurance report, Maria says suddenly. It lists everything recovered from the crash, including a damaged laptop. Evidence log shows it went to the company's IT department, Ben reads, under Sarah's supervision. I grab my phone, calling Rodriguez. The old IT storage room, now. 20 minutes later, we're breaking into dusty filing cabinets while agents stand guard outside. Val sneezes as we shift through ancient hardware. Here. Ben pulls out a battered laptop. Serial number matches. Jasmine takes it reverently. The hard drive might still be intact. How long? I ask. Give me an hour. It takes 30 minutes. We huddle around her screen as Mom's last files load. Documents, photos, videos. Play that one. Val points to a video file dated the day she died. Mom's face fills the screen, looking exactly as I remember. If you're watching this, I didn't make it, but I've uploaded everything to secure servers. The evidence is hidden in the one place they'd never look, the company's sustainable energy patents. The patents? I whisper. Each patent application contains encoded data, Ben realizes, pulling them up, hidden in plain sight all these years. She knew they'd try to destroy her files, Val says, so she hid the proof in documents they couldn't touch without exposing themselves. Mom continues, Lexi, Val, I'm so sorry I won't see you grow up, but I know you'll finish this. Brian, my love, forgive yourself. Your signature may have opened the door, but your heart was always in the right place. Tears stream down Dad's face as agents lead him away. He goes quietly, pausing only to whisper, Make it right. Rodriguez returns, energized. We've got everything. Teams are moving in worldwide. Sarah's entire network is about to fall. Wait, I say. One more thing. I walk to the boardroom where emergency meetings are underway. Executives freeze as I enter. Ladies and gentlemen, I announce, in light of recent events, I'm calling for an immediate vote. All in favor of establishing the Julia Parker Foundation for Corporate Ethics and Women in STEM? Hands shoot up across the room. Nobody dares object. The foundation will be funded by seized assets from the corrupt network my mother died exposing, I continue. And its first act will be establishing oversight committees for all sustainable energy projects worldwide. I'll draft the paperwork, Val says, standing beside me. And I'll head the technical committee, Ben adds. As the sun rises fully, I stand at Mom's old office window. Her voice from the video echoes. Remember, girls, the truth always finds its way to light. We did it, Mom, I whisper. We brought them all down. My phone buzzes. Agent Rodriguez. Final arrest count 43 worldwide, including 3 board members and 6 international executives. I show the message to Val. She hugs me tight. Think Dad will be okay? He made mistakes, I say, but he helped us fix them. That counts for something. So what now? I smile, thinking of Mom's legacy and the changes we've set in motion. Now, we build something better, together. The autumn breeze carries the scent of coffee and fresh paint through the open windows of the newly renovated Parker Industries headquarters. I straighten Mom's portrait, now hanging prominently in the main lobby, as students file in for the Julia Parker Foundation's first scholarship ceremony. Nervous? Ben squeezes my hand. Terrified, I admit. watching young women in business attire fill the auditorium seats. What if you say, "What if this doesn't work one more time? I'm telling Val," he threatens playfully. Speaking of Val, she strides onto the stage, commanding attention in her CEO suit. My little sister, all grown up and running the company while I handle the foundation. Who would have thought? Welcome to the first annual Julia Parker Scholarship Awards. She begins. Today, we celebrate not just academic excellence, but the courage to challenge corrupt systems and break down barriers. I slip backstage, where Maria and Jasmine are helping our guest of honor prepare. Dad straightens his tie, prison pale but standing tall. Ready? I ask. He nods. They approved my work release for this. Don't want to waste it. You earned it, I remind him. Your testimony helped convict 38 people. Small payment on a large debt. He touches Mom's wedding ring, which I now wear on a chain. Julia would be proud of you girls. Val's voice rings out. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Brian Parker. The audience's reaction is mixed. Some applause, some whispers. Everyone knows his story. Dad takes the podium, hands shaking slightly. 20 years ago, I made choices that cost me everything I held dear. He begins. My wife, my daughter's trust, my integrity. I chose pride over principle, silence over truth. But my daughters, his voice cracks. They chose justice. In the front row, Agent Rodriguez nods approvingly. Thanks to her advocacy, Dad's sentence was reduced in exchange for his cooperation and agreement to serve on the Foundation's ethics board after release. Today, Dad continues, we award scholarships to 20 young women entering STEM fields. Each recipient will also intern at Parker Industries, where they'll work on sustainable energy projects that prioritize ethics over profits. I step forward with the certificates as Val reads names. Each young face glows with determination, reminding me of Mom's video. The next generation will do better if we give them the chance. The ceremony concludes, but our day isn't over. In the renovated engineering wing, Maria unveils the prototype that consumed our last 3 months, a portable solar generator that costs a tenth of existing models. Mass production starts next week, she announces to the gathered press, and thanks to the Foundation's oversight, we can guarantee every unit is produced ethically, with fair labor and sustainable materials. Plus, Jasmine adds, the patents are structured to prevent the kind of financial manipulation that plagued the old system. Your mother's coding trick inspired that, she tells me quietly. Later, in Mom's old office, now the Foundation's headquarters, Val and I share tea from her favorite cup. Did you see the latest audit? Val asks. Record profits, 0 ethical violations. I confirm. Turns out doing the right thing is good business. Speaking of business, she slides over a tablet. Remember those diversity hiring quotas you demanded when you first came back? I scan the numbers, then laugh. 60% women in engineering? We exceeded the quota. Turns out, when you remove the corrupt gatekeepers, talent flows naturally. A knock interrupts us. Ben enters with Thompson, our faithful butler turned office manager. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here you need to meet. A young woman enters, clutching a familiar-looking notebook. I'm Amy. I found this at a garage sale. I think it belonged to your mother. My hands tremble as I open it. Mom's handwriting fills the pages, her personal journal from the year before she died. There's something else, Amy says. I'm a forensic accountant. Reading her notes, she predicted exactly how digital currency could be used for fraud. 20 years ago, I'd like to help the Foundation implement her preventive measures. Val and I exchange looks. Mom's legacy still growing, still fighting corruption in ways we never imagined. Welcome aboard, I tell Amy. That evening, I visit Mom's grave with fresh flowers. The foundation's scholarship certificate rests against her headstone, along with a photo of Dad speaking at the ceremony. "We're not done yet, Mom," I whisper, "but we're getting there. Your fight is our fight now, and we're winning." My phone buzzes, Ben reminding me about dinner. As I stand, a familiar warmth fills me, like Mom's hugs used to. The autumn breeze carries maple leaves across the cemetery, and I swear I hear her laugh in the wind. Some people say revenge is best served cold, but Mom taught us something better. Justice is best served by lifting others up, by turning wounds into wisdom, by making sure the next generation stands taller on our shoulders. And that's exactly what we're gonna do.
The text message glared at me from my husband's phone. "Missing you already. Last night was incredible." My hands trembled as I read it again, though I'd already memorized every word. 3 years of marriage, and this was how I discovered Daryl's true colors. I'm Bailey, and this is how my life imploded on an ordinary Tuesday morning. "You're being paranoid, honey," my mother Vivienne's voice crackled through my phone speaker. "Daryl would never cheat on you. He's such a good provider." I paced our kitchen, my bare feet cold against the tile floor. "Mum, I saw the messages. They're from his co-worker Kylie. There are hotel receipts in his email." "Maybe it's for work. You know how many business trips he takes." The dismissal in her voice made my stomach churn. "Work trips don't include heart emojis and lingerie photos, Mom." "Bailey, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. What will people think?" I hung up and slumped against the counter, fighting back tears. My own mother choosing appearances over truth. Again. The front door clicked open and Daryl's whistling filled the hallway. I quickly wiped my eyes and straightened up. "Hey, babe!" He strode in, all perfect smile and designer suit. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." I watched his face carefully. "How was your late meeting last night?" His smile didn't waver. "Productive. We finally closed the Henderson deal." "Really? At the Marriott downtown?" The briefest flicker crossed his face before he recovered. "What are you talking about?" I held up his phone. "You left this on the counter this morning, forgot to lock it." The colour drained from his face. "You went through my phone." "Don't you dare make this about privacy, Daryl. How long have you been sleeping with Kylie?" He ran his hands through his hair, switching tactics. "Baby, it's not what you think. She's just..." "Don't." My voice shook. "Don't lie to me anymore." The doorbell rang, making us both jump. My father Ernest's booming voice called out, "Bailey? Daryl?" Daryl's expression shifted to something calculating. "We should talk about this later," he whispered urgently. Before I could respond, my father walked in. "There you are. Vivienne called me, said you were having some sort of crisis." "Dad, Bailey's just tired." Daryl cut in smoothly, placing his hand on my shoulder. I flinched away. She found some work emails and jumped to conclusions. My father's face hardened. "Is this true, Bailey? Are you causing trouble again?" "Again?" I stared at him incredulously. "When have I ever..." "Remember Tommy Peterson in high school? You accused him of cheating on you too, and it turned out he was planning your birthday party." "I was 16. This is completely different." "Sweetheart," Daryl's voice dripped with concern, "maybe you should lie down. You're not thinking clearly." I watched in horror as my father nodded sympathetically. "Listen to your husband, Bailey. He only wants what's best for you." My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Adeline. "Got your message? I'm outside. Need backup?" I grabbed my purse. "I need some air." "Bailey," my father's warning tone stopped me at the door. "Don't do anything rash. Think about the family." I turned back, meeting Daryl's smug expression. "Oh, I am thinking about family, and I'm thinking about how easily they can betray you." I slammed the door behind me, practically running to Adeline's car. As I slid into the passenger seat, she took one look at my face and pulled away from the curb. "Your mom called me," she said. "Tried to convince me to talk some sense into you." I laughed bitterly. Of course she did. Heaven forbid their perfect son-in-law's reputation get tarnished. "So, what's the plan?" I pulled out my phone, opening the screenshots I'd taken. First, we're going to the bank. There's something weird about these messages. Kylie mentioned something about the account being ready. I need to know what they're hiding. And then I thought about Daryl's smug face, my father's dismissal, my mother's denial. Then we're going to burn their perfect little world to the ground. Adeline grinned. Now that sounds like a plan I can get behind. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Daryl watching from the window, phone pressed to his ear. Let him scramble. Let him worry. Because what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that his text messages to Kylie weren't the only things I'd found on his phone that morning. There was something much darker hiding in his email drafts. Something that would make his affair look like a minor indiscretion in comparison. Account number 547891. The bank teller frowned at her screen. I'm sorry, but I don't see any joint accounts with that number. It has to be there, I insisted, showing her the screenshot from Daryl's phone. Could you check again? She shook her head. The only accounts I see are your personal checking and the joint household account. Adeline squeezed my arm. Try his name alone. I'm sorry, but I can't access accounts where you're not listed as an owner. Walking out of the third bank that morning, I kicked a trash can in frustration. Dead end. Again. Not necessarily, Adeline said, pulling me toward a coffee shop. Your brother-in-law, Aidan, works in finance, right? Maybe he knows something. I stopped short. That's actually brilliant. 20 minutes later, we sat across from Aidan in his sleek downtown office. He looked exactly like Daryl, but with kinder eyes and worse fashion sense. Bailey, this is a surprise. He hugged me warmly. Everything okay? Daryl mentioned something about you being upset this morning. Did he mention why? Aidan shifted uncomfortably. He said you weren't feeling well, might be making some accusations. Show him, Adeline nudged me. I handed over my phone. Aidan's face darkened as he scrolled through the messages. That son of a... I'm so sorry, Bailey. I need your help, Aidan. There's something weird about their messages. They keep referencing an account, but I can't find it at any local banks. He frowned. Could be offshore. Actually. He trailed off, looking troubled. What? Last month, Daryl asked me about setting up a shell corporation. Said it was for a client. I gave him some basic information, including a contact in the Cayman Islands. My heart raced. Did he use it? I don't know, but... Aidan typed something into his computer. Hold on. Last week, he had me sign some paperwork as a witness. Said it was routine business stuff, but he seemed nervous. Do you have copies? No, but I remember the company name. Blue Harbor Ventures. I wrote it down with shaking hands. Aidan, I need one more favor. Don't tell Daryl about this conversation. He looked between me and the messages again. Count on it. And Bailey. Whatever he's involved in, be careful. Back in Adeline's car, my phone exploded with notifications. 3 missed calls from my mother, 2 from my father, and a text from my brother Seth. Mum's having a meltdown. What's going on? We should call Seth, Adeline suggested. He's always had your back. I dialed his number. He answered immediately. Finally! Are you okay? Not really. Can you meet us? 30 minutes later, we sat in a quiet corner of a diner. Seth listened intently as I explained everything, his expression growing darker. I knew something was off with Daryl lately, he said. Last month at Dad's birthday, I overheard him arguing with someone on the phone about moving the timeline up. There's more, I said. I found something in his email drafts, messages to someone about cleaning money through real estate deals. Seth, I think he's involved in something illegal. Jesus, Seth ran a hand through his hair. Have you told Mom and Dad? They won't listen. They think I'm making everything up. Classic Mom and Dad, he scoffed. Remember when I tried to tell them about catching Dad's business partner embezzling? They didn't believe me until the FBI showed up. My phone buzzed. Daryl again. I declined the call. What's your next move? Seth asked. Blue Harbor Ventures. If Daryl's hiding money, that's where we'll find it. Seth pulled out his laptop. Let me help. I know some people who... He stopped mid-sentence, staring at his screen. Bailey, look at this. He turned the laptop around. On the screen was a news article from 3 years ago. Local real estate developer found dead in apparent suicide. Below was a photo of a man I'd never seen before, but the name made my blood run cold. He was the previous owner of Blue Harbour Ventures. The article says he was about to be indicted for money laundering, Seth read. The company was sold shortly after his death. Bailey, the sale date matches when Daryl first started his business trips. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Daryl. Coming home late tonight. Business dinner with Aiden. I showed it to Seth, who immediately pulled out his phone and called his wife. Hey, is Aiden home? He is. Thanks. He hung up, his face grim. Aiden's been home sick all day. Daryl's lying. Again, I whispered. Bailey, Adeline's voice was urgent. Look who just walked into the diner. Through the window, I saw Kylie getting out of her car, heading for the entrance. She hadn't seen us yet. Seth grabbed our things. Back door, now. As we slipped out, I caught a glimpse of Kylie answering her phone, her face anxious. Whatever Daryl was involved in, she was deep in it too, and I was getting closer to the truth. Seth's apartment felt like a war room, with laptops open and papers scattered across his dining table. My head spun as memories crashed over me, everything taking on new meaning in light of what we'd discovered. Remember when you first met Daryl? Adeline asked, sorting through bank statements. I did. The charity gala 5 years ago. He'd seemed so genuine, passionate about his real estate development projects, helping low-income communities. He said all the right things, I muttered, played the perfect part. Look at this, Seth interrupted, pointing at his screen. Blue Harbour Ventures has purchased 6 properties in the last 2 years, all cash deals. That's not unusual for real estate, I said. No, but this is... Every property was condemned within months of purchase, then resold at massive profits to shell companies that disappear. My phone lit up with a text from my mother. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof because of your behaviour. Come home and apologise to Daryl. I threw the phone across the couch. Bailey, Adeline's voice was strange. When did Daryl take that trip to Miami last year? March, I think. Why? She held up a document. Because according to this, he was in the Cayman Islands, meeting with someone named Marcus. The name hit me like a punch. Marcus? Daryl mentioned that name in his sleep last week. He sounded scared. Seth's printer whirred to life. Found something else. The previous owner of Blue Harbour? His suicide note was typed. His wife insisted he never typed anything, said he was old school, wrote everything by hand. Jesus, Adeline whispered. A knock at the door made us all jump. Seth checked the security camera and relaxed. It's just Aiden. But when he opened the door, Aiden wasn't alone. My father stood behind him. What the hell is this? Dad demanded, storming in. Some kind of conspiracy meeting? How did you know I was here? I asked. Tracked your phone, he said dismissively. Bailey, this has gone far enough. You're embarrassing the family. Embarrassing the family? I stood up, anger burning through me. Daryl is cheating on me and possibly involved in criminal activity, but you're worried about embarrassment? Criminal activity? Aiden looked pale. What are you talking about? Seth quickly filled him in. With each detail, Aiden's face grew more shocked. The Shell Corporation paperwork, he said slowly. There was something else. A list of offshore accounts. I thought it was weird, but Daryl said it was standard practice for high-end real estate deals. Ernest, Seth turned to our father. You have to see this isn't normal. Dad's face reddened. All I see is my children trying to destroy a good man's reputation. Daryl has done nothing but provide for this family. He even helped me secure investors for my retirement fund. Something clicked. What investors, Dad? Through Blue Harbour. Daryl set it all up. Guaranteed returns, tax-free offshore accounts. The room went silent. Seth and I exchanged horrified looks. Dad, I said carefully, did you give Daryl money to invest? Of course I did. Your mother and I both did. Our entire retirement fund. My legs gave out. Adeline caught me before I hit the floor. How much? Seth demanded. $2 million. Dad's voice wavered for the first time. Why? What's wrong? Before anyone could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Back off, Bailey, or the next suicide won't be faked. I showed it to Seth, whose face hardened. Dad, sit down. There's something you need to see. For the next hour, we walked him through everything, the properties, the shell companies, the suspicious death. With each revelation, his face grew grayer. This can't be right, he kept saying. Daryl wouldn't. He would, Aiden's voice cracked, and I helped him. God, I signed those papers without even reading them. Another text lit up my phone from my mother. Daryl just came by, says you're spreading vicious lies. How could you do this to us? Mom's retirement fund, I whispered. All their savings. We need to go to the police, Adeline said. No, Seth and Aiden spoke simultaneously. Not yet, Seth continued. If Daryl suspects we're onto him, that money disappears forever. We need proof first. I might know where to get it, Aiden said quietly. There's a property Daryl never lets anyone visit. An old warehouse on the east side. He keeps it off all official records, but I saw the deed once. Then that's our next stop, I said, standing up. Bailey. My father's voice stopped me. He looked suddenly old, defeated. I'm sorry, I should have listened. I squeezed his hand. We're going to fix this, Dad, but first, we need to find out exactly what we're dealing with. What we didn't know then was that the warehouse would change everything and put all our lives in danger. The warehouse loomed before us in the fading daylight, its broken windows like dark, empty eyes. Seth pulled his car around back, killing the engine. Security cameras, Aiden pointed out, but they're fake. Daryl had me order them last year, just empty shells to scare people off. How do we get in? I asked. Service entrance. Aiden led us to a rusty door. I saw him use this once, the code should be. He punched in numbers. The lock clicked. Wait! Seth grabbed my arm. Maybe you should stay in the car. Not a chance. Inside, our flashlights revealed mountains of filing cabinets and stacked boxes. The air smelled of mold and something else, something chemical. Over here, Adeline called out. She stood before a newer-looking door with a keypad. This looks important. Aiden tried the same code. Nothing. Try his birthday, I suggested. No. Wait. Aiden's face lit up. The date Blue Harbor was incorporated. He punched in the numbers. The door swung open. The room beyond was different. Clean, organized, with a desk and computer. File boxes lined the walls, each labeled with property addresses. Look for anything about Marcus, Seth said, booting up the computer. I grabbed the nearest box and started digging. The documents inside made my stomach turn. Fake inspection reports, forged permits, wire transfers to numbered accounts. Guys, Adeline's voice shook. These aren't just property records. They're proof of money laundering. Millions of dollars worth. Found Marcus, Seth announced from the computer. Multiple emails between him and Daryl. They're... Jesus. What? They're discussing how to handle the previous owner of Blue Harbor, the one who supposedly committed suicide. A noise from outside the room made us freeze. Footsteps. Hide, Seth hissed. We scrambled behind filing cabinets just as voices approached. The money needs to move tonight, a woman said. Kylie. It's not that simple, Daryl's voice replied. Bailey's digging. She got to Aiden somehow. Then shut her up. Marcus is getting nervous. He doesn't like loose ends. She's my wife. She's a liability like the last one. My blood ran cold. The last one? That was different, Daryl said. He was going to talk to the FBI. And now your wife is talking to anyone who'll listen. Fix it, Daryl, or Marcus will. Their footsteps retreated. The outer door clicked shut. We emerged from hiding, faces pale. The last one, Adeline whispered. Bailey, you don't think... The previous owner, Seth said grimly. They killed him. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone ready to call the police, no signal. We need to get out of here, Aiden said. Now. We grabbed what documents we could, but as we reached the outer door, headlights swept across the windows. A car was pulling up. Back door, Seth whispered. We crept through the warehouse, hearts pounding. A door slammed outside. Check everything, an unfamiliar male voice ordered. If they've been here, I want to know. We reached the back door just as footsteps entered the warehouse. Seth eased it open, wincing at the creak. Did you hear that? The voice asked. Run! Seth pushed me forward. We sprinted across the parking lot. A shout behind us, then the crack of a gunshot. Adeline screamed. Split up! Seth yelled. Meet at the safe place. I ran with Aiden toward a fence while Seth and Adeline went the other way. More shots rang out. Up and over. Aiden boosted me onto the fence. I scrambled across, then helped pull him up. We didn't stop running until we reached his car, parked several blocks away. Shaking, I checked my phone. 1 bar of signal. Call Seth, Aiden gasped. The phone rang 4 times before Seth answered. We're okay. We're safe. Meet you there. 20 minutes later, we regrouped at Seth's friend's cabin outside town. As soon as I saw Adeline and Seth, I broke down crying. The documents, Seth pulled crumpled papers from his jacket. We got enough. Bank records, emails, everything. They tried to kill us. Adeline's voice trembled. They actually shot at us. My phone buzzed. Daryl. Where are you? Your mother's worried sick. Another text followed. Come home, Bailey. We can work this out. Then a third. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Bailey. Seth gripped my shoulders. We need to take this to the FBI. Tonight. What about Mom and Dad's money? If we don't stop this now, more people will die. Aiden's voice was firm. Like the last owner. Like they're planning for you. I took a deep breath and dialed the FBI's number. As it rang, another text from Daryl appeared. Last chance, Bailey. Think about your family. I was thinking about my family. And I was going to save them from the monster they'd welcomed into our lives. Mrs. Brooks, FBI agent Sarah leaned forward in her chair. We've been investigating Blue Harbor Ventures for months, but we never had enough evidence to move forward. Until now. The federal building's interview room felt cold and sterile. Seth sat beside me while Aiden and Adeline gave separate statements down the hall. What happens next? I asked. We move carefully, Agent Sarah replied. Your husband has powerful connections. We need to coordinate with multiple jurisdictions, freeze accounts. My phone lit up. Mom again. Family emergency meeting. Now. Your father's not well. They're trying to lure you out, Seth warned. Agent Sarah nodded. We can protect you, but you'll need to stay in a safe house. What about my parents? We'll watch them too, but... The door burst open. Another agent rushed in, face tense. We have a problem. Someone tipped them off. Accounts are being emptied as we speak. How many? All of them, including the ones linked to the parents' retirement fund. My stomach lurched. No. There's more, the agent continued. Kylie Salazar just booked a flight to the Caymans. Leaves in 2 hours. Agent Sarah cursed. We can't touch her there, not without a lengthy legal process. I can. I stood up. Bailey, no. Seth grabbed my arm. She knows everything, Seth, and she's about to disappear with our parents' money. It's too dangerous, Agent Sarah warned. Then arrest her. We don't have enough to hold her yet. The documents you provided are still being authenticated. I checked the time. The airport's 30 minutes away. I can get her to talk. Absolutely not, Agent Sarah said firmly. But I was already moving. Seth followed me out. This is insane, he said as we rushed to his car. You don't have to come. Like hell I don't. We reached the airport with an hour to spare. I spotted Kylie immediately at the first-class check-in, designer luggage at her feet. Stay back, I told Seth. Be ready with your phone. I approached her slowly. She saw me coming and froze. Running away, Kylie? She glanced around nervously. I'm late for my flight. To the Caymans? With my parents' retirement fund? I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Should we call Marcus and ask him? Her face went white. You don't know what you're dealing with. I know about the previous owner, the suicide that wasn't. Bailey, her voice dropped to a whisper. If you know what's good for you, you'll walk away. Like you walked away with $2 million of my parents' money. Better than walking away in a body bag. Is that what happened to Daryl's first wife? Kylie's composure cracked. What? You mentioned the last one at the warehouse, but the previous owner was a man. So who are you talking about? She grabbed my arm, pulling me aside. Stop digging, please. You have no idea what these people are capable of. Then tell me. She looked around again, then leaned in close. Daryl's first wife didn't die in a car accident like everyone thinks. She found out about the operation, about Marcus, about everything. My blood ran cold. Daryl killed her. Marcus did. Made it look like an accident, just like he did with the previous owner when he wouldn't play ball. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know what I was getting into. By the time I figured it out, I was in too deep. Help us stop them. I can't. They'll kill me. We can protect you. The FBI is already here. Agent Sarah's voice came from behind us. Kylie spun around to find herself surrounded by agents. How? Your phone, I said. Seth was broadcasting our entire conversation to them. Kylie's shoulders slumped. If I talk, I want protection. Already arranged, Agent Sarah said, leading her away. My phone buzzed one last time. Daryl, you've made a terrible mistake. Then another text from an unknown number. Smart girl, but not smart enough. Check on your parents. My heart stopped. I showed Seth the message. Go, Agent Sarah ordered. We'll send backup. We raced to our parents' house, breaking every speed limit. The front door was open when we arrived. Inside, we found Mom crying on the couch. Dad nowhere in sight. Where is he? I demanded. Daryl came by, she sobbed. Said he needed Dad's help with some urgent paperwork. They left 20 minutes ago. Where? The warehouse. Daryl said something about saving what was left of the retirement fund. Seth was already calling Agent Sarah as we ran back to the car, but we both knew we might be too late. The sun was setting as we sped toward the warehouse, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this time someone wasn't making it out alive. FBI's 10 minutes out, Seth said as we parked a block from the warehouse. We should wait. Dad doesn't have 10 minutes. I was already moving, staying in the shadows. 2 cars sat in the warehouse parking lot, Daryl's Mercedes and a black SUV I'd never seen before. Voices drifted from inside. Get closer, I whispered to Seth, but stay hidden. We crept to a broken window. Inside, Dad stood with Daryl and a tall man I assumed was Marcus. Dad's face was ashen. Sign it, Marcus said, pushing papers across a table. Transfer everything to the new accounts. Ernest? Daryl's voice was gentle, reasonable. It's the only way to protect what's left. What happened to the rest? Dad's voice shook. Your daughter happened, Marcus snapped. Her little FBI stunt triggered our fail-safes. Most accounts are already emptied. You promised, Dad started. I promised returns if you kept quiet, Daryl cut in. Bailey changed the game. Sign it, Marcus repeated, or your retirement fund won't be your biggest problem. Dad picked up the pen. My heart raced. Don't. I stepped through the door before Seth could stop me. Everyone spun around. Daryl's face darkened. Marcus reached under his jacket. Bailey, run, Dad yelled. Nobody's running. Marcus pulled out a gun. Though I'm glad you're here, Bailey. Saves us the trouble of hunting you down. The FBI's already on their way, I said. Then we'll make this quick. He turned to Daryl. Handle your wife. I'll deal with Daddy dearest. Daryl stepped toward me. You should have left it alone, Bailey. Like your first wife did? He stopped cold. Dad looked between us, confused. What is she talking about? Tell him, Daryl, I pressed. Tell him how you and Marcus murdered her when she discovered your scheme, just like you murdered the previous owner of Blue Harbor. That's a lie, Dad said weakly. Ask him about the suicide note, I continued. Ask him why it was typed when everyone knew the man never used computers. Enough, Marcus raised the gun. Or ask about the offshore accounts, I kept talking, watching Seth slip through another entrance behind them. Ask where the money really went. Ask about the properties that mysteriously burned down after being insured for millions. I said enough, Marcus aimed at my chest. Several things happened at once. Dad lunged for Marcus. Daryl reached for me, and Seth brought a metal pipe down on Marcus's arm. The gun went off, the bullet hitting a wall. I drove my knee into Daryl's stomach as he grabbed me. He doubled over but managed to catch my ankle as I tried to run. Marcus recovered quickly, shoving Dad aside and reaching for the dropped gun. Seth kicked it away, sending it sliding across the floor. "You're both dead," Marcus snarled, pulling another gun from an ankle holster. Sirens wailed in the distance. "It's over," I gasped, still struggling with Daryl. Kylie told them everything. "Kylie?" Daryl's grip loosened slightly. "She's in protective custody. The FBI has all the documents, all the proof." "You're lying," Marcus said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. "Check your phone," Seth suggested. "Check the news. The story's already breaking." Marcus pulled out his phone with his free hand. His face went pale. The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flashed outside. "We need to go." Marcus grabbed Daryl's arm. "Now!" Daryl released me, backing away. "I'm sorry, Bailey. I never meant—" "Save it," I spat. They ran for the back door, but Seth's voice stopped them. "That exit's already covered." He was bluffing, but they didn't know that. They hesitated just long enough for the FBI to burst in through the main entrance. "Federal agents! Hands up!" Marcus raised his gun. 3 agents fired simultaneously. He dropped, clutching his shoulder. Daryl immediately raised his hands. "I can explain everything." "Save it for your lawyer," Agent Sarah said, cuffing him. Dad sat heavily on a nearby chair, looking shell-shocked. "Bailey, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you." I hugged him tightly. "It's okay, Dad." "No, it's not." He pulled back, his eyes wet. "Your mother and I, we were so wrong about everything." "Mr. Brooks," Agent Sarah approached, "we'll need your statement." As Dad followed her, Seth pulled me aside. "You okay?" I watched Daryl being led away in handcuffs, his perfect facade finally crumbling. "I will be." My phone buzzed. "Adeline. Just saw the news. You did it." But it wasn't over yet. There was still one more confrontation waiting, telling Mom the whole truth about the man she'd defended so fiercely. And somehow, that scared me more than anything else that had happened tonight. The family room felt smaller than I remembered. Mom paced by the window while Dad sat slumped in his armchair. Seth and Adeline flanked me on the couch like bodyguards. "This is ridiculous," Mom said for the 3rd time. "There must be some mistake." "The FBI doesn't make mistakes like this, Vivian." Dad's voice was tired. "I saw everything with my own eyes." "But Daryl wouldn't." "He did," I cut in. "And you need to hear all of it." I nodded to Seth, who opened his laptop and pulled up the news articles. Mom's hands shook as she read the headlines. "Local real estate developer arrested in money laundering scheme. Blue Harbor Ventures linked to previous owner's death. Multiple arrests in multi-million-dollar fraud case." "There's more," I said softly. "About his first wife." Mom's head snapped up. "What about her?" "She didn't die in a car accident." I took a deep breath. "They killed her because she discovered what they were doing." "No." Mom collapsed into a chair. "No, that's not—" "He was devastated when she died. He could barely talk about it." "Because he was guilty," Seth said. "The FBI found evidence in Marcus's files, emails discussing how to handle her, just like they planned to handle Bailey." "They shot at us, Mom," I added. "At the warehouse. They were going to kill me, too." Mom's face crumpled. But he was family. We trusted him. I defended him to everyone." "That's what he counted on," Adeline spoke up. "He used your loyalty against you." "The retirement fund," Mom turned to Dad. "Tell me we didn't lose everything." Dad couldn't meet her eyes. "They're trying to recover what they can, but most of it's gone." A knock at the door made everyone jump. Agent Sarah entered, looking grim. "We found something else," she said. "Mrs. Brooks, we need to discuss your signature on some documents." "My signature?" Mom frowned. "What documents?" "Transfer papers for additional properties under Blue Harbor Ventures. Your signature appears on several of them." "That's impossible. I never signed anything." "Show her." Agent Sarah handed over a file. Mom's face went white as she looked at the papers. These aren't my signatures. Someone forged them. We believe Daryl used these documents to secure additional loans. The properties were then intentionally condemned and resold at massive profits. He forged my signature? Mom's voice cracked. How many times? We've identified 17 instances so far. Mom stood up suddenly, running to the bathroom. We could hear her getting sick. She'll need to make a formal statement, Agent Sarah said quietly. I'll bring her in tomorrow, Dad promised. After Agent Sarah left, Mom emerged, her face streaked with tears. I kept telling you to apologize to him, she said, looking at me. I called you paranoid, difficult. My own daughter, and I chose him. Mom, no, let me finish, she straightened up. I failed you, Bailey. I failed this whole family. I was so concerned with appearances, with what people would think. We all were, Dad added. We let him blind us. The preliminary hearing is next week, Seth said. They want us all to testify. Mom nodded firmly. Good. I want to look him in the eye when I tell the truth. You'll have to face him, Adeline warned. Both of them. Marcus will be there too. I'm not afraid anymore, Mom said. I'm angry. My phone buzzed. A text from Aiden. Just finished my FBI interview. You need to see what they found in Daryl's private email. What is it? Seth asked, seeing my expression. I don't know, but Aiden's coming over. 20 minutes later, Aiden burst in, waving a stack of papers. They found emails between Daryl and Marcus going back 5 years, he said. Before he even met Bailey, they planned everything, including how to infiltrate your family. What do you mean? Dad asked. They researched you, all of you. They knew about your retirement fund, your connections in the community. They chose you specifically. Mom made a small, broken sound. The charity gala where we met, I said slowly. That wasn't coincidence, was it? No, Aiden confirmed. They orchestrated the whole thing. Every moment of your relationship was calculated. The room fell silent as the full weight of the manipulation sank in. The hearing, Mom said finally. I don't want to just testify. I want to make a victim impact statement. I want everyone to know exactly what he did to this family. We'll all be there, Seth promised. Together, Dad added, taking Mom's hand. I looked around at my family, battered but unbroken. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like hope. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Daryl had one last surprise waiting. Something we hadn't discovered yet. And I was right. The courthouse hallway buzzed with tension. Reporters clustered outside, held back by security. Mom gripped my hand as we waited to enter. Ready? Seth asked. Before I could answer, Adeline rushed up, waving her phone. You need to see this, now. She pulled us into an empty conference room and played a video. It showed Daryl in his jail cell speaking to someone off camera. If I'm going down, his voice was cold, the whole family burns. Play the recording. The video cut to security footage of Dad's office from 3 years ago. Dad sat at his desk counting cash, lots of cash. He was setting us up, I whispered. The whole time he was gathering blackmail material. There's more, Adeline said. This just leaked to every major news outlet. Mum's face hardened. Let me see that phone. She watched the video twice, then straightened her jacket. Good, good. Dad looked stricken. Vivian, that video shows you counting the cash from selling your classic car collection to invest in Blue Harbor, she finished. We have the bill of sale, remember? Dated and notarized. Understanding dawned on Dad's face. The money I gave Daryl to invest. Exactly, Mom smiled grimly. His attempt to frame you just proved the fraud. He documented his own crime. Agent Sarah appeared in the doorway. They're ready for us. The courtroom fell silent as we entered. Daryl and Marcus sat at the defense table, both in suits that couldn't quite hide their prison jumpsuits underneath. Daryl's eyes locked onto mine. I stared back, refusing to flinch. The proceedings moved quickly. Kylie testified first, detailing the money laundering operation. Then came the forensic accountants, the evidence from the warehouse, the forged documents. Finally, Mom stood for her victim impact statement. I trusted you, she began, looking directly at Daryl. We all did. You didn't just steal our money. You stole our faith in people, our sense of family. Her voice grew stronger. But here's what you didn't steal: our strength, our truth, our ability to stand here today and make sure you never hurt another family again. Daryl's smug expression faltered. Oh, and that video you leaked this morning, Mom continued. Thank you for providing documented proof of exactly when and how you took our money. The prosecutors are especially grateful. Marcus cursed under his breath. Daryl's lawyer looked like he might be sick. The judge's verdict was swift and severe. 25 years for Daryl, 30 for Marcus. Full restitution ordered. As they led Daryl away, he called out, "Bailey, wait!" "No," I cut him off. "You don't get to speak to me anymore. Not ever again." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. "Mrs. Brooks," one called out, "how does it feel to know your husband orchestrated this entire fraud?" "Ex-husband," I corrected. "And it feels like justice." "Mr. and Mrs. Brooks," another asked my parents, "what about the video released this morning?" Dad stepped forward. "That video shows me selling my prized possessions to invest in what I thought was my son-in-law's legitimate business. Instead, that money funded his criminal enterprise. But today, justice was served." Back home, we gathered in the family room, the same room where this all started. But everything felt different now. "The FBI found most of the money," Seth announced, hanging up his phone. "It was hidden in accounts under the names of Daryl's shell companies. They're working on returning it." "All of it?" Dad asked. "Almost. Enough." Mom touched the divorce papers on the coffee table, signed, filed, and finally finished. "What now?" "Now," Adeline said, "we celebrate. You all deserve it." First, I picked up my phone. One last thing. I pulled up my social media and typed, "To anyone who's ever been gaslit, disbelieved, or manipulated, your truth matters. Stand strong. Justice is possible. Trust yourself." "Post it," Mom said softly. I did. The responses flooded in immediately. Messages of support, similar stories, offers of help. A community of strength rising from the ashes of betrayal. "Bailey," Dad called from the kitchen. "Come see this." On the TV, breaking news showed Marcus being led into another police car. The headline read, "New evidence links Blue Harbor suspects to 3 additional deaths." "It's really over," I breathed. "No," Mom corrected, putting her arm around me. "It's just beginning. We're stronger now, wiser." "And together," Seth added. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from an unknown number. But this time I didn't feel afraid. I deleted it without reading it. Whatever Daryl had left to say, whatever secrets were still hidden, they didn't matter anymore. We had our truth, our family, and our future. And that was everything. I stared at Dallas across our kitchen island, certain I'd misheard him. The morning sunlight streaming through our bay windows felt suddenly cold, and my coffee mug trembled in my hands. "What do you mean you used the house as collateral?" "Look, Marlo, it's not as bad as it sounds," Dallas said, casually buttering his toast like he hadn't just demolished our entire life. "I had a system. The odds were in my favor. I just needed a little more time. My name is Marlo Kent, and this is how I discovered my husband of 8 years had gambled away our home." "A system?" My voice cracked. "You had a system for betting away everything we've worked for?" Dallas's shoulders tensed, but his voice remained irritatingly calm. "The casino manager assured me." "The casino manager?" I slammed my mug down, coffee sloshing onto the marble countertop. "Since when do you take financial advice from people whose job it is to take your money?" "You're overreacting," he said, checking his phone. "I can fix this, I just need to make a few calls." I grabbed his phone, my hands shaking. "How much?" "Marlo." "How?" "Much." He sighed, running his fingers through his hair, a gesture that used to make my heart flutter but now made me want to scream. 450,000. The room spun. That was more than our mortgage, more than we had in savings, more than... A sharp knock at the front door made us both jump. Dallas's face went pale. "Who is that?" I asked, though I already knew. The way Dallas wouldn't meet my eyes told me everything. Just stay here, he muttered, heading for the door. I followed him anyway, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floors. A tall man in an expensive suit stood on our porch, his presence somehow making our front entrance feel smaller. "Mr. Kent," the man said, his voice professionally detached. "I'm Carson Flores from Metropolitan Collections. May I come in?" Dallas stepped aside, and I watched as the man who would take our home walked past the family photos I'd carefully arranged on the walls. Photos of happier times when I thought I knew who my husband was. "Mrs. Kent," Carson nodded at me. "I'm here regarding the property deed used as collateral for your husband's marker at the Grand Casino." "I never signed anything," I blurted out. Carson's eyebrows rose slightly as he pulled documents from his briefcase. "Actually, Mrs. Kent, your signature is right here." I snatched the paper, my heart stopping as I recognized my signature on a document I'd never seen before. The date beside it was from 3 months ago when I'd been signing papers for our refinancing. "You slipped this in with the refinancing documents?" I turned to Dallas, my voice barely a whisper. "You planned this?" "Baby, I can explain." "Don't baby me." I turned back to Carson. "This can't be legal. He tricked me into signing." "I'm afraid that's a matter for the courts," Carson replied, not unkindly. "For now, the document is binding. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises." 72 hours? The room was definitely spinning now. "This is our home. We can't just—" "I understand this is difficult," Carson said, placing his business card on our coffee table. "But Mr. Kent agreed to these terms when he took the marker." I watched Dallas sink into our couch, the one we'd picked out together on our 5th anniversary, his head in his hands, but I felt no sympathy, only rage. "Get out," I said quietly. Dallas looked up. "Marlo." "Get out." My voice was stronger now. "Pack a bag and get out of my house." "Our house," he corrected weakly. "And technically, in 3 days, it won't be either of ours." I grabbed my phone, my fingers already finding Gianna's number. "You lost the right to call it our anything the moment you forged my signature. Now get out before I call the police and report you for fraud." "You wouldn't try me." Something in my voice must have convinced him because he stood up slowly, looking between me and Carson. "I'll get some things," he mumbled, heading upstairs. Carson cleared his throat. "Mrs. Kent, I'll need you to initial these." "Get out too," I said, my phone already ringing. "You can come back in 72 hours, but right now I need you to leave." After they both left, I sank to the floor, my back against the front door. Gianna's voice came through the phone, cheerful and unaware. "Hey girl, what's up?" "Gianna," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need your help. Dallas just confessed to gambling away our house, and I have 72 hours to figure out how to save it." There was a pause, then Gianna's voice came back, steel in her tone. "I'm on my way. Don't move. And Marlo, we're going to fix this." For the first time since Dallas's confession, I felt a glimmer of hope. Not because I believed we could save the house, but because I knew in that moment that I wasn't alone. Gianna arrived 20 minutes later with Eleanor in tow, both of them carrying paper bags from my favorite bakery and determined expressions on their faces. I hadn't moved from my spot on the floor. "First things first," Gianna said, pulling me up. "We're going to eat these croissants, drink some coffee, and then we're going to destroy your husband." Eleanor was already in my kitchen pulling out mugs. "Where is the bastard anyway?" "Gone." I kicked him out. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. He took some clothes and left. "Good," Gianna nodded, spreading papers across my kitchen island, the same spot where Dallas had dropped his bomb just hours ago. "Now tell us everything." Between bites of chocolate croissant and sips of the strongest coffee Eleanor had ever made, I recounted the morning's events. When I got to the part about the forged signature, Eleanor's husband Zane called. "Put him on speaker," Eleanor said, answering her phone. "Zane's a real estate attorney. He needs to hear this." I repeated the story, my voice stronger this time. When I finished, there was a long pause on the other end. "Zane," I prompted, "please tell me there's something we can do." "Actually," his voice crackled through the speaker, "there might be. The refinancing documents, do you have copies?" I nodded, then remembered he couldn't see me. Yes, in my home office. Get them, now. I ran upstairs, my heart pounding. When I returned with the thick folder, Gianna was already taking photos of the gambling marker documents Carson had left behind. Okay, Zane said after I described the refinancing paperwork. Here's the thing. If Dallas slipped in that gambling document during your refinancing, there's a good chance it wasn't properly notarized. The refinancing would have had a notary present, but the gambling document would have been notarized separately, Eleanor finished, understanding lighting up her face. Marlo, do you remember signing anything in front of a notary that wasn't related to the refinancing? No, I said, my hands shaking as I flipped through the papers, just the mortgage stuff. Look at the notary stamps, Zane instructed. Compare the dates and times. Gianna leaned over my shoulder as I laid out the documents side by side. Holy shit, she whispered. The refinancing documents were all stamped by the notary at 2:15 p.m. on March 15th. The gambling marker document with my forged signature was supposedly notarized at 2:20 p.m. by the same notary. That's impossible, Eleanor said, pointing at the stamps. No notary would stamp documents 5 minutes apart without you physically being there. They have to witness the signature. Exactly, Zane said triumphantly. Marlo, you need a lawyer, a good one. This is fraud, plain and simple. I know someone, Gianna said, already pulling out her phone. Nicole Blake. She handled my sister's divorce last year, and she's ruthless. She specializes in cases involving financial fraud. My hands were still shaking, but now with anger rather than fear. Will this be enough to stop them from taking the house? It should at least buy you time, Zane replied. They can't evict you while there's pending litigation about the validity of the document. Eleanor grabbed my hand. You hear that? You're not losing this house in 72 hours. Nicole can see you in an hour, Gianna announced, ending her call. I'm driving. I'll email you everything I know about notary fraud cases, Zane added. Eleanor, make sure Marlo brings all the documentation. As my friends moved into action around me, gathering papers and making calls, I felt something shift inside me. The devastation of the morning was morphing into something else, something harder and more determined. There's one more thing, I said, making them all pause. I want to press charges against Dallas. Gianna's face broke into a fierce grin. Now that's the Marlo I know. He's going to try to come back, Eleanor warned. Men like that always do. Once they realize they've lost control. Let him try, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. I'm changing the locks today. I'll call my locksmith, Gianna said, already dialing. He can be here in 30 minutes. And I'm staying here tonight, Eleanor added. No arguments. I looked at my friends, really looked at them. Gianna, who'd survived her own husband's betrayal 3 years ago and come out stronger. Eleanor, who'd supported her through it all while building her own happy marriage with Zane. They weren't just here to help. They were here to fight. Okay, I said, gathering the documents into my bag. Let's go see Nicole. As we headed for Gianna's car, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. I expected to see the same broken woman who'd collapsed on the floor this morning. Instead, I saw someone different, someone stronger, someone angry, someone ready to fight back. Dallas had no idea what was coming. Nicole's office was exactly what you'd expect from someone Gianna described as ruthless. All clean lines and sharp edges, with degrees and certifications covering one wall and a view of downtown from the other. The lawyer herself matched her surroundings, dressed in a crisp charcoal suit with not a hair out of place. So, Nicole said, spreading our documents across her glass desk, your husband forged your signature to use your house as gambling collateral. She wasn't asking a question. Yes, I replied, gripping my armrest. Can you help? Nicole's perfectly manicured nail tapped the notary stamps. This is amateur hour fraud, the kind of mistake people make when they think they're smarter than the system. She looked up at me. Did your husband always think he was the smartest person in the room? I let out a bitter laugh. You have no idea. Actually, I do. Nicole pulled out a tablet, swiping through documents. I did some research before you arrived. Your husband has quite a history at the Grand Casino. Multiple markers, all paid off just in time, until now. He's been dancing on this edge for years. My stomach lurched. Years? The good news is this works in our favor. Nicole turned her tablet around, showing me a spreadsheet of dates and amounts. The casino knew his pattern. They knew he was a risk, yet they still accepted your house as collateral with obviously fraudulent documentation. They're liable. Gianna, who'd insisted on staying for the meeting, leaned forward. So what's our next move? First, we file an emergency injunction to stop the eviction. Nicole was already typing on her computer. Then we countersue both Dallas and the casino for fraud. Countersue? I asked. They threw the first punch when they sent Carson to your house, Nicole explained, not looking up from her screen. We're just hitting back harder. A notification pinged on her computer. Perfect timing. Judge Martinez is available for an emergency hearing in 2 hours. She hates gambling fraud cases. This will work in our favor. 2 hours? My voice cracked. I'm not prepared for... Yes, you are, Nicole cut me off, standing up. You're wearing a professional outfit, you have all the documentation, and you have me. That's all you need. She wasn't wrong about my outfit. Gianna had insisted I change into a blazer and pencil skirt before coming to the office. Looking powerful helps you feel powerful, she'd said. What about Dallas? I asked. Should we notify him? Let him sweat, Nicole said, gathering papers into her briefcase. He'll find out soon enough when the casino's lawyers contact him. 2 hours later, I sat in Judge Martinez's chambers, trying not to fidget as Nicole presented our case. The judge, a stern-faced woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, examined the notary stamps with growing displeasure. This is sloppy, she muttered, reaching for another document. Embarrassingly sloppy. The casino's lawyer, a nervous-looking man who'd clearly been called in last minute, cleared his throat. Your Honor, while we acknowledge there might be some irregularities in the documentation... Irregularities? Judge Martinez peered at him over her glasses. Counselor, this is textbook fraud. Your client accepted clearly falsified documents for a 6-figure transaction. That's not an irregularity. That's negligence at best, complicity at worst. I watched as the casino's lawyer seemed to shrink in his chair. Furthermore, the judge continued, attempting to evict Mrs. Kent based on these fraudulent documents shows a disturbing lack of due diligence on your client's part. Nicole sat beside me, radiating calm confidence as Judge Martinez picked up her pen. I'm granting the emergency injunction. The eviction notice is suspended pending full investigation of these documents. She fixed the casino's lawyer with a stern look. I strongly suggest your clients consider their position carefully before we reconvene. This could get very expensive for them very quickly. As we left the courthouse, Nicole was already on her phone. I'm having the injunction served to Carson immediately. He can't come within 100 feet of your property until this is resolved. What about Dallas? I asked. Oh, he'll be served too. Nicole's smile was predatory. At every possible address we can find for him. Work, gym, his favorite bars, everywhere. Gianna squeezed my arm. How does it feel? I took a deep breath of the afternoon air. Like I can finally breathe again. Good, Nicole said, ending her call. Because we're just getting started. The casino will probably try to settle. They can't afford this kind of publicity, but first, they'll try to pressure Dallas into fixing this mess. He can't fix this, I said firmly. There's no going back. No, Nicole agreed, checking another incoming message. There isn't. And speaking of no going back, the locksmith just confirmed he's finished changing all your locks. Would you like me to have the new keys sent to Dallas's lawyer, or should we make him beg for them? For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt myself smile. Let him beg. The first text from Dallas came at 3 a.m., 3 days after the emergency injunction. My phone buzzed against my nightstand, lighting up the darkness. You're ruining everything, it read. The casino's lawyers are threatening to come after me personally. I switched my phone to silent and went back to sleep. By morning, there were 12 more messages, each more desperate than the last. I forwarded them all to Nicole without reading them and headed downstairs, where Eleanor was already making coffee. She'd insisted on staying with me until things settled down. "Your ex is camping out in his car down the street," she said, sliding a mug across the counter. "Want me to call the police?" I shook my head. "Nicole says we should document everything. Let him dig his own grave." My phone rang. Nicole's office. "The casino's lawyers reached out," she said without preamble. "They want to meet. Today." That was fast. "They've probably run a cost analysis on fighting this in court. Turn on your TV, check any business news channel." I grabbed the remote and Eleanor moved closer as I flipped to the news. There it was, scrolling across the bottom of the screen. "Grand Casino faces fraud investigation. Stock drops 12% in early trading." "Holy shit," Eleanor whispered. "Exactly," Nicole said through the phone. "They're bleeding money every hour this stays in the news. I've arranged a meeting for 2 p.m. Wear something intimidating." The casino's conference room felt colder than it needed to be, probably to match the icy stares from their legal team. Dallas sat on their side of the table looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Good. Mrs. Kent," their lead lawyer began, "we're prepared to offer—" "Actually," Nicole cut in smoothly, "before we discuss numbers, my client has some non-negotiable terms." I sat up straighter, remembering Nicole's coaching from earlier. "Let them see your strength, not your anger." "First," Nicole continued, "the Grand Casino will publicly acknowledge their failure to properly verify documentation in this case. Second, they will implement new verification procedures to prevent similar fraud. Third, they will forgive all of Mr. Kent's gambling debts." Dallas's head snapped up. The casino's lawyers shifted uncomfortably. "And why?" their lead lawyer asked. "Would we agree to forgive Mr. Kent's debts?" "Because," I said, finding my voice, "if you don't, I'll testify about how your casino staff encouraged his gambling despite knowing his addiction, about how they offered him private rooms, special markers, unlimited credit, all while watching him spiral." The room temperature seemed to drop another 10 degrees. "You can't prove any of that," one of their lawyers said. I pulled out my phone, playing a video Dallas had sent me months ago, him bragging about his VIP treatment, the casino manager clearly visible in the background pouring champagne. "I have dozens of these," I said, even though I didn't. Dallas loved documenting his success. Dallas looked like he might be sick. The casino's legal team huddled together, whispering urgently. "One more thing," Nicole added, her voice carrying across their whispers. "My client wants the house deed cleared of all gambling-related claims. Immediately." Their lead lawyer straightened his tie. "We'll need time to consider." "You have until 5 p.m., Nicole interrupted. "After that, I have 3 major news networks very interested in interviewing my client about predatory gambling practices." We left them scrambling, Dallas staring at the table like it might swallow him whole. In the elevator, Nicole checked her watch. "They'll cave by 4:30. They can't risk more bad press." "What about Dallas?" I asked. "Won't this just enable him to keep gambling?" "No," Nicole smiled, "because part of the agreement they'll sign includes banning him from all their properties, standard procedure for fraud cases." Back home, Eleanor had gathered Gianna and Zane for support. We sat around my kitchen island, my island, waiting for Nicole's call. At 4:15, my phone rang. "They agreed to everything," Nicole said. "I'm sending over the paperwork now. The house is yours, free and clear. Dallas's debts are forgiven, and he's banned from the casino." "And the public statement?" I asked. "Tomorrow morning. They're calling it a voluntary review of verification procedures. Corporate speak for we messed up." After I hung up, Gianna pulled out a bottle of champagne she'd been hiding. I knew we'd need this. As we celebrated, a knock at the door made us all freeze. Through the window, I could see Dallas standing there, looking lost. "Want me to get rid of him?" Zane offered. I shook my head, grabbing an envelope from my desk drawer, the one containing divorce papers I'd had Nicole prepare days ago. "No," I said, walking to the door. "I've got this." The champagne could wait. First, I had some papers for Dallas to sign. Dallas looked smaller somehow, standing on my porch with his shoulders hunched. The confident swagger that had once attracted me was gone, replaced by something desperate and pathetic. "Marlo," he started, "I can explain." Save it. I held up the envelope. These are divorce papers. Sign them. He stared at the envelope like it might bite him. Can we talk about this? Inside? No. I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. Through the window, I could see my friends watching, ready to intervene if needed. We're doing this here. The casino banned me, he said, running his hands through his unwashed hair. I can't even get my stuff from the hotel. My cards are all declined. That sounds like a you problem. Baby, please. Don't. My voice was sharp enough to make him flinch. You forged my signature. You gambled away our home. You betrayed every ounce of trust I had in you. There's nothing left to say. I did it for us. His voice cracked. I was trying to make things better, give us the life you deserved. By lying to me, I thrust the envelope against his chest. By risking everything we built together without even talking to me. I was going to tell you when I won big. A laugh escaped me, harsh and bitter. When you won big, that's what every gambling addict says, Dallas. Just one more hand. The next bet will be different. I have a system. His face darkened. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. I stepped closer, my voice low and steady. I loved you. I trusted you. I would have helped you if you'd just been honest. Instead, you chose to lie, to steal, to betray me in the worst possible way. Behind me, I heard the door open slightly. Zane's voice carried quietly. Everything okay out here? We're fine, I called back, not taking my eyes off Dallas. He was just about to sign these papers. Dallas glanced at the door, then back at me. You've got quite the support system now. I always did. I just didn't need them until you showed me exactly who you are. He took the envelope, hands shaking slightly. I don't have anywhere to go. The casino forgave your debts. You're getting a clean slate, which is more than you deserve. What you do with it is not my problem anymore. I pulled a pen from my pocket and held it out. Dallas stared at it for a long moment before taking it. There's a notary inside, I said. Sign them now and this can all be over. Over? He laughed weakly. Just like that? 8 years of marriage, just over. It was over the moment you slipped that forged document into the refinancing papers. You just didn't tell me. The pen shook in his hand as he signed, each signature looking more defeated than the last. When he finished, I called for the notary, a different one from the refinancing, of course. She came out, stamped the documents, and disappeared back inside without a word. So that's it? Dallas asked, handing back the pen. That's it? I gathered the papers. Your lawyer will get copies tomorrow. Don't come back here, Dallas. Don't call. Don't text. It's done. Marlo. Goodbye, Dallas. I turned and walked back inside, closing the door firmly behind me. Through the window, I watched him stand there for a moment, looking lost before finally turning and walking away. You okay? Gianna asked, appearing at my side with a fresh glass of champagne. Actually, yes. I took the glass, surprised to find I was telling the truth. I really am. Eleanor raised her glass. To new beginnings. And to karma, Gianna added with a grin. To both, I agreed, clinking my glass against theirs. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. Casino's PR statement just went live. Turn on the news. We crowded around the TV, watching as the Grand Casino's CEO made a carefully worded statement about reviewing internal procedures and strengthening verification protocols. The stock ticker at the bottom showed their shares falling another 8%. They're going to lose millions over this, Zane commented, whistling low. Good, I said, taking another sip of champagne. Maybe it'll make them think twice before enabling the next gambling addict who walks through their doors. Speaking of thinking twice, Eleanor said, what are you going to do with the house now? Stay or sell? I looked around at the space that had almost been taken from me, the photos I'd hung, the memories I'd made, the life I'd built. But now, instead of seeing what I'd almost lost, I saw possibility. I'm staying, I said firmly. But first, I'm redecorating. Everything Dallas picked out is going to charity. Gianna grinned, already pulling up interior design websites on her phone. Now that sounds like a project I can get behind. Tomorrow, I said, refilling our glasses. Tonight, We celebrate. And we did, letting the champagne flow as Dallas's shadow finally began to fade from my home. 3 weeks after the divorce papers were signed, I was knee-deep in paint samples and furniture catalogues when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Carson, the debt collector, standing on my porch with an uncomfortable expression. "Mrs. Kent," he said when I opened the door, "I owe you an apology." I leaned against the doorframe, paint swatches still in my hand. For trying to evict me from my own home? For not verifying the documentation more thoroughly? He shifted his weight. "I've been fired from Metropolitan Collections." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "But you were just doing your job. That's actually why I'm here." He pulled out a business card. "I'm starting my own consulting firm, helping people identify and prevent fraud. Would you consider sharing your story at some of my seminars? Your experience could help others avoid similar situations." Before I could respond, a familiar car pulled into my driveway. Dallas stepped out looking better than he had on the porch 3 weeks ago, cleaned up, wearing a new suit. "Marlo," he called out, striding toward the door. "We need to talk." Carson turned, positioning himself between Dallas and the door. "Sir, I believe you should leave." "This is between me and my wife." "Ex-wife," I corrected, pulling out my phone. "And you're not supposed to be here." "I got a job," Dallas said quickly. "A real one, at an investment firm downtown. I'm getting help for the gambling. I'm fixing things." "Good for you," I replied, already dialing Nicole's number. "But that has nothing to do with me." "The house is still in both our names," he said. "I checked. The divorce isn't final yet." Carson stepped forward. "Sir, as someone familiar with property law, I can assure you that the court order specifically—" "Stay out of this," Dallas snapped. "This is your fault too. If you'd just given us more time." "The only person at fault here is you," I cut in, phone to my ear. "Nicole, Dallas is at my house." "Yes, right now. Perfect. Thank you." Dallas's face fell. "You called your lawyer?" "And the police," I added. "They should be here in about 3 minutes. Would you like to leave before they arrive?" "You can't just erase 8 years," he said, his voice rising. "I made a mistake, but I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to be better." "I'm glad you're getting help," I said. And I was. "But your recovery isn't my responsibility, neither are you." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. "Please," Dallas tried one last time. "Just give me another chance." "Like the chances you gave our marriage before gambling it away?" I shook my head. "Go home, Dallas, whatever that means for you now." The police car pulled up and 2 officers stepped out. I recognized one of them, Officer Sarah, who'd taken my statement about the fraud. "Everything okay here, Mrs. Kent?" she asked, approaching the porch. "Mr. Kent was just leaving," Carson answered for me, his tone professional but firm. Dallas looked between the officers, Carson, and me, finally accepting defeat. His shoulders slumped as he walked back to his car. "Would you like to press charges?" Officer Sarah asked. "This could be considered harassment." I watched Dallas's car disappear around the corner. Not this time, but I wanted on record that he showed up. After the police left, Carson handed me his card again. "Think about what I said. Your story could help a lot of people." "I'll consider it," I said, tucking the card into my pocket. "And Carson? Thanks for staying." He nodded. Sometimes the worst situations bring out the best allies. Inside, I looked at the paint swatches in my hand, warm, bright colours to replace Dallas's preferred dark tones. My phone buzzed with a text from Gianna. "Heard what happened. Coming over with wine and pizza. Eleanor's bringing paint rollers." Another text came through, this one from Nicole. "Filing a restraining order first thing tomorrow. No more surprise visits." I texted back quick thanks to both, then walked through my house with its half-painted walls and boxes of Dallas's things headed for donation. Each room held memories, but they didn't hurt anymore. They were just stories now, lessons learned, chapters closed. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Gianna, Eleanor, and, surprisingly, Nicole, all carrying supplies for an impromptu painting party. "We figured you shouldn't be alone tonight," Eleanor said, setting down paint rollers. Plus, Gianna added, holding up 2 bottles of wine, these walls aren't going to paint themselves. Nicole pulled out some papers. And while we work, you can sign this restraining order. I looked at these women, my friends, my defenders, my support system, and felt something settle in my chest. Dallas might have taken my trust, but he'd given me something unexpected in return. The knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, and I wasn't alone. Let's paint, I said, reaching for a roller. I'm thinking yellow for the living room. New day, new start. 6 months after Dallas's surprise visit, I stood in my freshly renovated kitchen, preparing for a dinner party. The yellow walls glowed in the evening light, and new family photos, ones without Dallas, lined the hallway. The doorbell rang just as I was pulling lasagna from the oven. Gianna walked in without waiting for an answer, carrying a bottle of wine and a thick envelope. "You're not going to believe what came in the mail today," she said, dropping the envelope on my new kitchen island. I recognized the law firm's letterhead immediately. "The final divorce papers?" "Better." She grinned. "Open it." Inside was a check, a large one, along with a letter from the Grand Casino's legal team. "Holy shit," I whispered, staring at the numbers. "Is this real?" "Very." Nicole walked in through the still-open door, looking pleased with herself. "The casino's board decided to settle the civil suit we filed. That's your compensation for emotional damages, plus a little extra to keep quiet about the specifics." Eleanor and Zane arrived next, carrying dessert. "Did she open it?" Eleanor asked excitedly. "You all knew about this?" "Nicole told us this morning," Zane admitted. "We wanted to be here when you found out." I sat down hard on one of my new bar stools. This would pay off the entire mortgage. "And then some," Nicole added, accepting a glass of wine from Gianna. "You could sell this place? Buy something new without any memories attached." "No," I said firmly, surprising myself with how quickly the answer came. "This is my home. I fought for it. I'm staying." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Carson, carrying a folder of his own. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Had to finish the presentation slides for next week's seminar." He looked at the check still in my hand. "Ah, you got the settlement. Perfect timing." I'd agreed to speak at Carson's fraud prevention seminars. It turned out telling my story was therapeutic, and the extra income didn't hurt either. "Speaking of timing," Nicole said, pulling out her phone, "you might want to see this." She pulled up a news article. "Investment firm terminates employee over undisclosed gambling history." There was Dallas's picture looking shell-shocked outside his new office building. "He lied on his application," Nicole explained. "Didn't disclose the casino incident. Someone tipped off his employers." "Did you?" I started to ask. "Not me," she said with a small smile. "Karma doesn't need my help." The evening progressed, filled with good food, better wine, and the kind of laughter that only comes from being surrounded by true friends. As we sat around my dining room table, a beautiful handcrafted piece I'd chosen myself, Carson raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said, "and to Marlowe, who turned a nightmare into an inspiration for others." "To Marlowe," they echoed. "Actually," I said, pulling out my own folder, "I have an announcement too. I've been working with a financial advisor. I'm starting a foundation." "A foundation?" Eleanor leaned forward. "For gambling addiction awareness and fraud prevention, using part of the settlement money." I spread out the paperwork. "We'll work with families affected by gambling addiction, provide legal support, offer counseling." "That's amazing," Gianna whispered, looking through the plans. "I want you all involved," I continued. "Nicole, we'll need legal expertise. Carson, your fraud prevention experience is crucial. Gianna, Eleanor, your support group connections would be invaluable. Zane, we'll need help with the real estate aspects when we're helping families save their homes." They were all quiet for a moment, taking it in. "You're really doing this?" Nicole asked. "Using what happened to help others?" "Why not?" I shrugged. "Dallas took enough from me. I'm done letting that define my story. It's time to write a new one." "Count me in," Carson said immediately. "This fits perfectly with what I'm already doing." One by one, they all agreed. As they discussed possibilities and plans, I looked around my dining room. 6 months ago, I'd thought I was losing everything. Instead, I'd gained something priceless, Purpose. The doorbell rang one final time. It was Sarah, the police officer, off duty and carrying a bottle of wine. "Hope I'm not too late," she said. "Got held up at work." "Perfect timing," I said, ushering her in. "We're just starting to plan a revolution." As we brought Sarah up to speed, I caught my reflection in the window. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who'd collapsed on her floor all those months ago. She was stronger, wiser, and finally, completely free. Dallas had tried to take my home, but he'd accidentally given me something better, a mission, and surrounded by these people, my chosen family, I knew we were going to change lives, starting with mine. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I reviewed applications for the Foundation's latest housing assistance program. A knock on my door made me look up to find Gianna standing there, practically vibrating with excitement. "Turn on the news," she said, grabbing the remote. "Right now." The Grand Casino's CEO appeared on screen, looking uncomfortable as camera flashes lit up his face. The headline scrolling beneath him read, "Major casino chain announces new addiction prevention measures." "Following recent events and community feedback," he was saying, "we're implementing comprehensive changes to our responsible gaming policies. This includes stricter verification procedures, enhanced addiction screening, and mandatory cooling-off periods for high-risk players." "They're using our guidelines," I whispered, "the exact ones we proposed." "Keep watching," Gianna said, perching on my desk. The camera panned to show Nicole standing at the podium, looking fierce in her signature blazer. "As legal counsel for the Kent Foundation, we're pleased to see the Grand Casino taking these crucial steps. However, we'll be monitoring their implementation closely to ensure these aren't just empty promises." My phone buzzed. Eleanor sending a group text. "They caved. Celebration dinner tonight." Before I could respond, Carson appeared in my doorway. "Have you seen—" "We're watching it now," Gianna interrupted, pointing at the screen. "This is just the first casino," Carson said, grinning. "3 more have reached out to me about implementing our prevention program." The news segment ended with a shot of our foundation's logo and a brief overview of our work. As they cut back to regular programming, my office phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I hadn't seen in months. "Dallas," I said, putting it on speaker. "I saw you on the news." His voice crackled through. "The Foundation. It's incredible." "What do you want, Dallas?" He sighed. "To apologize. For real this time. I'm 6 months clean now, working with a gambling addiction counselor. She thinks maybe I could help." "With the Foundation?" Gianna and Carson exchanged looks as I considered his words. "Send your counselor's contact information to Nicole," I said finally. "If she vouches for your recovery, we might have a place for you in our peer support program, as a volunteer, nothing more." "Thank you," he said quietly. "And Marlo? I'm sorry for everything." "I know," I replied, and was surprised to feel no pain, no anger, just acceptance. "Good luck with your recovery, Dallas." After hanging up, Gianna squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" "Actually, yes." I stood up, gathering my papers. "We have that speaking engagement at the community centre in an hour. We should get going." The community centre was packed. Families affected by gambling addiction, social workers, counsellors, even a few familiar faces from the casino industry. As I took the podium, I saw Sarah and Eleanor slipping in at the back, giving me thumbs up. 6 months ago, I began, I thought losing my home was the worst thing that could happen to me. I was wrong. The worst thing would have been staying silent about it. The room was completely quiet now. Every week someone comes to our foundation with a story like mine. Homes lost, families torn apart, lives destroyed by addiction and fraud. But here's what I've learned. Rock bottom can become a foundation if you build on it right. I gestured to my team, Gianna managing our support programs, Carson teaching fraud prevention, Nicole handling legal advocacy, Eleanor and Zane working with housing assistance. We can't change the past, but we can change the future. Today's announcement from the Grand Casino proves that change is possible, recovery is possible, justice is possible. After the presentation, a young woman approached me, clutching papers that looked painfully familiar. "My husband," she started, tears in her eyes. He forged my signature on... "Come with me," I said gently, leading her to Nicole's office. "We can help." That evening, as we gathered for our celebration dinner, this time at Gianna's house, I looked around at these people who'd become so much more than friends. Eleanor and Zane discussing expansion plans for our housing program, Nicole reviewing new casino regulations with Carson, Sarah sharing stories from her fraud task force. "Speech!" Gianna called out, raising her glass. I stood feeling the weight of my house keys in my pocket, keys to a home that was truly, finally mine. "To rock bottom," I said, raising my glass, "and to the family we build on the way back up." "To family," they echoed. Outside, the sun was setting on another day of changing lives, including my own. Dallas had tried to destroy my world, but instead, he'd helped me create something bigger than myself, something that mattered. Sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of finding something better. I'd lost a house and found a mission, lost a husband and found a family, lost my way and found my purpose. And that, I realized as I looked at my chosen family, was the best revenge of all.